fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my God! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to SimSpeed TV. It's another Friday night here with us, and the 7th round of the 2022 Virtual Racing School V8SCOPS season continues this weekend. We head to the land of the rising sun for the twin ring Motegi circuit. But of course, it's Friday night, which means it's time to get through our Logitech G V8SCOPS Support Series races to get this weekend of racing underway. The 2-litre Tourers and the Flat Sixes make their appearance tonight. It's been a while since we've seen the TCR class cars here in this support category group. Canadian Tire Motorsports Park was that last appearance back at the 3rd round of the V8SCOPS calendar. So, indeed, looking forward to seeing these guys back out on track after a fairly lengthy break. My name is Daniel Yeaman. Tonight, Jay Kennedy alongside me, doubling up on production and commentary. Of course, we'd usually have Reese Gardner here in the commentary box, Jay, but the man's decided to go himself and drive both the categories that are racing tonight, so we are unfortunately unable to acquire his services in the comms box, and we'll have to make do ourselves here tonight for everyone watching along with us.
Yeah, we'll make do though, because we do like watching Reese out there. It's always good to get a little bit of inside info about what's going on out there as well. It's always very, very fun out there too. So looking forward to seeing how he goes. He's looking forward to a good round. He needs a little bit of success because he's had a couple of shockers in the last couple of weeks. So we'll see if he does perform. But what a track we head to. Twin ring Motegi, running the full layout. It's going to be very, very entertaining. It's a tough circuit. It is a long lap. And these drivers are going to have to really be on their toes to make sure that they keep the cars in the right direction, maintain momentum, and don't lose too much ground. But as you can see, it's not the easiest track. Lots of straights, which means lots of drafting, which then relate to lots of passing opportunities with big, deep braking zones.
It sure does indeed. You can count at least 3 there in the opening sector with the 1-2 complex, the 3-4 complex, and then into turn 5 as well. And turn 7, turn 9, turn 10, turn 11, all viable heavy braking opportunities around this Grand Prix configuration of Twin Ring Motegi. And I mean, you say it's a long circuit, Jay, but I mean, funnily enough, the track length is only 4.8 kilometers, which means it's actually not as long as you might think in terms of sheer distance, but just the back and forth nature of the circuit and the amount of the corners being, for the most part, being low to medium speed, with only really turn 6 that we're going to see, or we were going to see potentially one of the cars come up. So, pardon me, that was the end of the lap there for Carl Sampson in the 2070 Hyundai, being medium speed. But yeah, with mostly slower corners, these cars that are in and out of the turns, braking and accelerating as they go, that will dictate the pace here. As we're currently coming to the end of qualifying tonight, heat format as always for these support category races. So once that timer hits 0 on screen, we cut straight into the first race tonight. And so with these lap times here over 2 minutes in length, you need to make sure you're getting onto your final lap before we get to 2 minutes and, well, 1 to 5 seconds remaining on that clock there, Jay. We're going to stay with one of the cars who's coming up towards the end of the lap here. That's the end of the final back stretch here at Motegi, the 94 of Reese Gardner through turn 11 and under the full oval course that runs around and over the top of this track through the 12, 13, 14 complex to end the lap here. Try and get on the power, but in these kind of cars, especially, Jay, don't run too wide there or the grass will catch you and take you in. And then up to the start-finish line, about halfway down the circuit. 202.0 from Reese. Did that lap count? I It did indeed. So he goes to P2 on the timing tower, and he's got one more chance to try and improve here in qualifying tonight.
Yeah, very, very good lap in the end there for Reese, so he'll be pretty happy with that. Driver, I expect to see a little bit higher up. Hasn't done a proper flying lap as of yet is Matthew Brunt, current best of a 204.2. Now, we've seen in previous TCR series we've covered here on SimSpeed that Matthew Brunt's been very, very competitive in these cars, so I'm surprised to see his pace a little bit down. Still going to cross the line. This looks like it'd be about a 203. No, it's going to be another 204, so he's off the pace. And has he got enough time to get another lap in? I don't know if he does.
He's got to make it a 201 to get back around in time, Jay. So he's going to have to go to the top of the timesheets to have a chance to get it on the board. One of the drivers that was going to have to wrap their qualifying session up at the end of this one is Dylan Jordan, but he actually opts to end it a tiny bit prematurely there into the lane for him. He's one of his teammates at Kiwi Sim Racing, Ewan Baker, the number 34 Honda TCR, comes around the last couple of turns. This will be his final lap in the session here. Can he improve on a 202.5? Coming up to the line, unfortunately, Jay, he had to fall just short there. 202.8 for him. Meanwhile, teammate of Carl Sampson behind goes to a 202.906 there to just eke out a little bit more margin at the front of the field. And that will settle him in here. Rob Christo on the 808 for Down Under Sim Esports. Can he improve? 203.7 indeed is an improvement on a 204.9, but that does put him in the middle of the pack here tonight, as he was followed across the line by Craig Mason, who improved to a 203.0. And then Robert Northway is actually a bit further back tonight, 203.4 for him. And then more drivers making their cross the line. We'll check in here. Isaac Edwards looking to improve on a 204.447. Did he keep this one clean? Across the line he comes. It's clean lap, but unfortunately, Jay, not an improvement on his current best in session.
Reese Gardner crosses the line. No improvement for him either. Damon McQueen, that is an improvement, and that will go to P2 for Damon. So good lap from him. We don't think that Matthew Brunt will make it back. In fact, he won't, because he's already pulling over. So that's qualifying done. Very, very interesting session, and probably a little bit more mixed up than we may have thought.
That is very true indeed. So we'll go and get those qualifying results for you all in a couple of moments' time. We're expecting here, by the looks of things, 14 TCR cars out on circuit tonight. And that should hopefully make for a good bit of racing around here. And of course, being the main event this evening, 17-lap opening race here at Motegi, or 40 minutes if we need to go time certain due to safety car intervention. We'll then take a break for the Jetta Cup and return for another 17-lap race later on to wrap up the proceedings this evening. But let's walk through that grid tonight now for race number 1. Jay, Carl Sampson there getting that pole position, but it's a pretty tight gap up front. As you mentioned, Damon McQueen there slotting into P2, less than just over 700s behind him to lock out that front row. Reese Gardner on a 202.0 will have to settle for a P3 start. He's got Dylan Jordan alongside him to start out of 4th place. And Matthew Pluck just missing out on a row 2 start, but 5th place for him. And Ewan Baker, pardon me, will be starting alongside him to round out our top 6. Then we jump back to Craig Mason, the first car in the 203s. He's got Hayden Kirk alongside in 8th place. Robert Northway, as I said, a little bit further back, I think, Jay, than we would expect from Robert, based on the Kiwi Sim Racing success we've seen in the 2-litre Tourers so far. He'll be there out of 9th place for this first race, and then 10th place start for Robert Christo in the 808, one of our Audis here tonight. Shane Best and Matthew Brunt starting out of 11th and 12th, and it's Isaac Edwards, the final car to set a time in the qualifying session. Reese Harnell, the 222 entry, is also registered in a Hyundai TCR, but not on the grid currently, and, well, by this stage, I would dare suggest probably not going to be racing here unless something changes all of a sudden in the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, I can't even see Reese Harnell in the session, so it looks like he will not take to the grid. So 13 cars for our race tonight, a little bit down from what we saw at Motegi earlier in the... at Mosport earlier in the season. So very good quality field though, some very, very competitive drivers at the front, and some drivers that we know like to battle each other in that mid-pack as well. So it's going to be very, very entertaining. 5 seconds on the clock. And as you said, 2 17-lap races for the drivers tonight.
All right, well, there goes 2 minutes on the grid timer. So here comes the revs. Of course, in these TCR cars, you don't want too many revs. Front-wheel drive, easy to overwhelm the tyres there. Green flag signal is given. We're away there. And that's a very
Reece
slow
Gardner
start from
stopped.
Rapolsito. Oh, stall for Reece Gardner. He's going to be driven straight into the rear. Oh, dear. 3 cars involved immediately as it's Damon McQueen to take the race lead off Carl Sampson. Robert Crystal's had a blinding start in the Audi TCR. Once again, that DSG gearbox. We've seen it in other TCR series that have been covered here on SimSpeed, Jay, and the Audi has absolutely jumped out of the starting blocks tonight, up 6 spots from 10th to 4th, just before we get to turn 1 with a relatively short run there. You can see in the background a shot there, Reece Gardner is going, but Robert Northway, the number 46 Hyundai, having run into the back of Reece and then taking damage from, I believe it was Shane Best in the 122 Honda, has pulled it over to the side of the road already. So we await to see what race control do with that. I haven't heard anything yet, I don't think. And clearance to tow given by the race control team there for 46. Unfortunately, he won't be back out for a little while here, Jay, and that will put him down at least a lap in this race.
Yeah, disappointing, but we have seen in not only in this series, but in other series as well within the V8SCOPS bracket, so whether it be support or main game, that getting the car away from the line is no easy feat. No aids allowed at all in the start process, so getting the cars off the line, not as clear cut. We see stalls almost all the time. Part of racing, it happens. Just one of those unfortunate things, and Gardner, Best, Northway all caught out with it. Unfortunate, but they'll all be back for the second race later on in the night.
Well, we hope so, but Northway's actually already pulled the pin on staying in the server here, so we would hope he does come back later on, given that there's indeed a second race tonight, compulsory pit stop for that race as well, to hopefully try and keep things a little bit interesting here as we jump back to the front of the field. And, well, there's a lap finally complete. It feels like quite a while around here in these cars, just with the way they're a bit stop-start. Look at Christel there, though, defending P4 to the white line from Matthew Pluck as they head to turn 1. And looks like they're going to go through as they were, but you can see here Pluck looking for the crisscross on Chris Dale, but he's not able to make it work this time. He'll have to slot in behind the 808 Audi as they make their way down into turn number 3 here. Pluck, though, has got a nose ahead on the way in, but TCR car surely not going to have a chance to drive around the outside, you would think. But these are wide corners, a nice large circuit here, Jay. Most Grand Prix specifications, despite the fact that, well, hasn't played host to a Formula 1 Grand Prix event. Has had IndyCar here once upon a time, in a rare occurrence where they didn't use the oval, but often playing host to Japanese national level competitions. Well, how about that? Around the outside of turn 5 and now through turn 6, it looks like Pluck's going to get the job done up the hill into 7 and 8.
And Baker might get through as well. No, he backs out of it right at the last moment. So good drive from Matthew Pluck to get through. Takes 4th position away. Very, very good job. Difficult to do, but you can maintain that momentum around the outside. You can get it done. Christel wants it back, though, and I tell you what, that's a nice move. A little bit of contact, but they're going to continue on, fight on.
Yeah, a little bit of a hip check there. Nothing too dramatic, but it means that Ewan Baker's checked up.
Wow.
Craig Mason. Oh, Mason there trying to line up behind Matthew Pluck. And Baker alongside him tried to get back inside behind his teammate there and suddenly found a car alongside him all of a sudden, it seems, on the exit of turn number 9 there as they came up there, well, down to turn 10, I should say. So down the back stretch, there's the east configuration pit lane there. We just passed by and then into the turn 11 corner here, end of this second straightaway, which is another prime overtaking spot, but it looks like it's going to be Pluck who hangs on to the 4th place now. Christel trying to hang on to 5th here. They come through the 12, 13, 14 complex. That's a little deep from Christel. Oh, Baker tries and he gets up the inside there just in time because Craig Mason was certainly pushing Baker along. They're both going to probably have a chance to go at it here. No, Mason's going to stay in behind Christel for turn 1. Interesting choice there. But then, pardon me, into 1 and 2 we come. Christel a bit passive on the brakes there, and Baker's going to be able to finish the job there finally on the exit of turn 2. You can see what ourselves a nice little pack forming if you count Pluck ahead there in P4, all the way back to Isaac Edwards to round out our top 10 here in this race as Christel's looking for the inside on, pardon me, Baker through turn 3 there, Jay, but not able to get it. He's going to tuck back in line for the rundown in turn 5.
Great fight going on in this battle pack, and I think it's probably been bunched up a little bit more because of Christel's natural pace. He had a great launch at the start line, but hasn't got the pace out on track that these other guys seem to have. I mean, qualified back in the field. He qualified back in 10th position, so he is a little bit off the pace in that aspect. But in saying that, his launch was absolutely brilliant. Got to 4th by the end of turn 1 or turn 2, and has done a good job of maintaining position since. And you can see that Matthew Pluck hasn't broken away quite as much as he may have liked. Go back to the front for a moment. They are staying single file as they were, have not changed for the entirety of these 3 laps. But this battle pack from 4th on back is absolutely crazy. Reece Gardner, though, unfortunately has had to bring it in the pits. He's having some issues.
Yeah, unfortunately sustaining quite a bit of damage, I dare think, earlier on in that race. And in fact, his car's actually rolling a tiny bit in its pit box. It's not much, but it's microscopically rolling backwards, even though he is in the car. Now, I think that's what I'm seeing. Yes, his car is inching ever so slightly backwards in its pit box. So I wonder if that's going to potentially cause any problems for the servicing of that vehicle. But we'll worry about another time, unfortunately, as there's a bit of action between Craig Mason and Christo behind this. But never mind that for a bit, because here comes Carl Sampson trying to have a go on Damon McQueen, get back that race lead that the pole position that he got in qualifying, and convert that back into the race lead that he wants. But nope, not able to make it work at turns 1 and 2 there, Jay. So he will tuck in once again for the run around turns 3 and 4. And Dylan Jordan just keeping an eye on things here and shadowing these 2 guys ahead for now, not looking to keep all that much pressure on Sampson, who's looking a lot more racy against McQueen here as they head down into turn 5. And again, showing the nose from Sampson, but not able to make anything stick. So they're going to stay as they were once again. But certainly I think now Carl showing a little bit more when it comes to race pace and trying to find something, at least when it comes to a weakness in McQueen's line and technique in these cars around here. And, well, see if he can find a little something to exploit, or maybe potentially even overwork McQueen a bit here in the opening phase, which might hurt the tyres as this race goes on for good measure, given that we both somewhat know, at least I perhaps know more from a driving perspective, but these TCR cars, very easy to overheat the front tyres. You don't necessarily wear them out on the percentage graph that it says the wear, but the tyre temps can get high enough that it can feel like you're driving on a set of ice skates up front of this car.
Yeah, the wear's not the thing. It's the tyre temperature, and making sure that you maintain control of your temperature is more crucial than anything else. McQueen with the momentum out of the main hairpin down the back straight, downhill braking zone, so you can brake a little bit later, push a little bit harder, your foot flat to the floor in the braking zone there. We'll see in the V8 some real committed braking into that section over the weekend. McQueen leads another lap, and it's proving to be quite difficult for Carl Sampson, Dylan Jordan to break away as well. Those guys behind are maintaining the gap as well. So the gap between these front 3 to that secondary group has not really changed for the last 2 or 3 laps, almost all doing the same lap times.
Yeah, it's a very good point to make there. Indeed, they're keeping themselves nice and consistent. The guys in the group behind are starting to match their pace, but, well, the damage is already done there, it would seem, for now, Jay. Unless these top 3 guys start absolutely duking it out, well, that 4-odd second gap is going to be apparent as a replay of the race start, thanks to the Virtual Racing School. And, well, seconds from disaster into, well, hello, there's a stopped car right in my path of Robert Northway, and unfortunately for him, there was just no time to respond to that when the cars ahead suddenly peel out. So there you go, Reece gets it going a fraction, then it bogs down, and yeah, the 2 cars behind pile on in there. You can see, unfortunately, yeah, Northway goes into the rear of Gardner, and then Shane Best follows up with a rear end, smashing into the rear of Northway as they all came to a stricken halt. Reece is back out on track at least, but you can see that he is certainly sporting some war wounds from that one already. Currently scored as 1 lap down last time around the circuit, so actually a minor miracle there, it would seem, in terms of only being 1 lap down at this stage. But that does mean he is in contention to get points, and if any drama happens late in the race, one of the other guys up ahead, that might just be a place gain for him, which will be important for race 2, of course. Checking back in with some of this fighting in this group of cars. You can see here Robert Crisdale is currently down in P7, Jay, and still pressuring Craig Mason, but they have lost the tail of Matthew Pluck and Ewan Baker. This group behind is starting to fan out now, and Christel's lap times in the 203s would suggest that Audi is starting to drop off a bit when it comes to the lap pace around here at this stage as we go on board. Oh, goodness, pardon me, with Craig Mason as he tries to continue the defence from Christel here towards the end of lap number 5.
Yeah, I think we've sort of can see that Christel, his one lap pace or his momentum over a race pace, just not quite there in comparison to everyone else. But that launch just was such a huge benefit for him. Started in 10th, took advantage of the incident ahead, but he did launch away absolutely beautifully as well. But he's now starting to fall back into his natural paced position, saying that he's still up 3 spots from where he started. So even though he's lost a few spots, he's still doing a very, very good job. Isaac Edwards has dropped from this group as well. Remember, we saw him at the back of the train. He has dropped a fair way back. This battle at the front between this front 3, though, it is starting to heat up even more again.
Well, certainly these guys know how to race hard, and they clearly know how to race each other fairly. But at the same time, Jay, they are still lapping as some of the fastest cars in the field. So despite the fact that they're willing to start getting racy, although at this particular moment, I have to say, Jay, looks like they've started to fan out a little bit here. Maybe try and get a little bit of a breather in between each other and focus on the raw lap speed. Well, in that case, that'll help them build the gap even further behind them, and then maybe really start getting a bit creative as this race goes on. But I have to say, these 3 guys all certainly in contention to win this one tonight, and looking pretty good for it. McQueen seems to have the measure of Carl Sampson. They're both lapping on 202.59 for McQueen last lap around, and Carl Sampson just behind on a 202.603. And then Dylan Jordan has already done a 202.5 in this race, but back to a 202.6 for him as well on lap 5 last time around. You can see the good slipstream for Sampson, Jay, but not close enough to make anything of it into turn 11s. But that's a little wide from McQueen. That might just give Sampson a thought about trying to set the run up down the front straight here to 1 and 2.
I think there's probably more chance for the move to get done by a distraction as opposed to a legitimate just outbraking maneuver. It is difficult to beat the moves done, but if you're committed enough, time you run well enough, you can get these moves completed. So we'll see how difficult it is, but these are 3 drivers that we've seen in all different sorts of series that are very, very competitive, very, very good in these cars. So looking forward to seeing how it does play out. 11 laps to go as we're on lap 7. There's still a lot of racing left in this one. The very good battle to watch all the way to the end.
I think so indeed. Look at that there. It was a slightly tighter exit from Sampson. And yeah, I think this is now certainly what you're talking about, Jay. Try and get in the head of the man ahead. Just show a nose somewhere. Just drive something a little different. Whatever you can do to make that man look in his mirror and make a mistake with the circuit ahead of him. Of course, mission obviously for Damon is don't worry about those guys as much as you can avoid it, and focus on the clean air ahead and getting the line right everywhere. But, well, certainly going to be a lot of relentless pressure, it would seem, all the way to the end of this race. And sure, it's a 17-lapper, but that's still a good 30-odd minutes of racing in these cars. And speaking of pressure, that's Christel and Mason going at it once again through turns 7 and 8 here, and a bit of back and forth between these two. Christel got past on the way up to turn 7 here. Mason thinks about the outside for turn number 9, but no, he's going to try and actually get the over-under here. That will put on the outside for the turn 10 hairpin, Jay, but if you can force Christel narrow on the way in, that might just help him with the drive down to the turn 11 right-hander at the end of this next straightaway.
100%. Just getting the exit of the corner is more important than having the position on the way in. So use this draft now to his advantage. He's got a little bit of overspeed. Is he close enough to get the move done? You can tell, yes, he probably is. As Christel defends a little bit, just makes a little bit of uncertainty there for Mason to be sure about the move. Backs out of it. So good little bit of driving there from Christel, but great job from Mason to force a potential error out of Rob Christel. Very, very interesting little battle here.
Yeah, starting just to make, I think, really making Christel have to think about defensive lines, and on top of that, Jay also trying to make Christel really work the track limits here tonight and push it to the absolute limits. It feels like a couple of times Christel may be overshooting the apex in a couple of spots. In turn 1 here, that's not the case. And to be honest, actually, that's a much better line for Christel there. Sacrifice mid-corner distance by then straightening the exit through turn 2. Mason obviously closing up there through the corner, but he does drop away a fraction on the run down to turn 3. So these double apex complexes here that define this opening sector of Motegi's Grand Prix layout are so critical, because it's all about getting in deep enough for the first part, the first apex, go past it pretty much, and then get out as wide as you dare, and while straightening the exit. Of course, so you can certainly go too far if you try and send it out wide. You can see here, look, there's different apex lines here. Mason actually gets that front right wheel into the grass there at turn 5. I'm not afraid to gamble a little bit perhaps with traction on the corner exit there, whereas Crisdale opting for a later, more shallow apex. And we'll see how that plays out as this race goes on. But yeah, back to the front, Jay. Good pick there with the change of cameras, because those gaps have tightened up once again between our top 3.
Broke out to about 6 to 7 tenths of a second between each of the cars, and now all of a sudden it's back to 2 tenths. So Sampson's starting to push, Dylan Jordan starting to push, but Damon McQueen is up to the fight, he's up to the battle. I must say, it's a Kiwi invasion at the front, isn't it? Kiwis everywhere in this race.
Yep. I mean, apparently Sampson's, well, on my particular timing software that provides overrides with respect to nations, as that's wide from McQueen. I'll never worry about the Australian versus Kiwi commentary there, because, well, that could have been problematic for McQueen, but through 12, 13 and 14 here at the end of the lap, there's not much of a passing option when you're sort of running line of stern like this, but that does give, again, just another hint to Sampson that maybe setting up something through turn 11 at the end of the east front stretch is the way to go here as we come back into turn 1 to start the 9th lap of this race, and this will mean halfway there, halfway to go, or halfway around this lap, that is, as well. And yeah, I think just McQueen is starting to look a little bit more vulnerable. They've dropped into the 203s on that last lap, all 3 of our race leaders, so pace starting to bleed off as well, but I would say that's probably down to just the changing conditions here for the cars and tyres. It's a very warm track, not even virtual 10:30 a.m. here in Motegi, but we're already at 43 degrees Celsius for the track temperature, despite a 19 degrees Celsius air temperature as we speak. So that will be playing havoc on these cars as well for good measure. And I think, yeah, we'll see this pace degrade steadily, but you're seeing it in the rest of the field. They've dropped into the 203s for the most part as well. A couple of guys still running around elsewhere. They're a little bit further off the pace as well. And gaps there a little bit more open again, Jay, up towards 3-4 tenths between McQueen and Sampson. But yeah, all it takes is one slightly suboptimal line through an exit of a corner for that gap to close right back up again as we continue to watch this battling and jump on board with Dylan Jordan here for a moment.
It's a very intense battle. It's a very good battle. It's some great driving between the guys, and definitely showing as a New Zealand flag on the door trim of Carl Sampson's car. So I'm going to say Kiwi.
Probably
we definitely
yes.
know that Damon McQueen is Kiwi / Bacon. Dylan Kiwi as well. So definitely 3 Kiwis at the front.
Yeah, I'll just blame dodgy overlay software on my end that's not yours, and the fact that it does allow for drivers to customize some things. So maybe that's what happened there for some reason. But yeah, well, indeed, yes, the land of bacon might be an appropriate alternate nationality for our race leader, as some who might know Damon just online in general to agree with us there, as come across the line to start the 10th lap of this race and get past that halfway marker in this one. And again, that looks a nice line from Sampson there in P2. A little bit of a gap forming back to Dylan Jordan for the moment. And yeah, 0.2 of a second. It's not much. You can see Sampson gaining a fraction there in the slipstream, J, down to turn 3, but he's going to need to be a little bit closer to get an advantage out of it if he wants to make a move there. If not, one of these other straightaways on this circuit here. Look to be fairly steady for now. Obviously gaining a bit in the slipstream, but McQueen seems to have a little bit better drive off the turns for the most part to counteract that.
A battle we were watching between Crisdale and Mason has now got Matthew Brunt in it as well, but not quite as close as this battle, so we'll stay here for now. Do have one eye on that as well. So we will go to that if we need to, as Brunt actually has lost all of that ground, and Mason is now a little bit closer than the others. So there's still a lot going on, despite the smaller field that we've got tonight from what we've seen in other rounds. Still lots of action, still lots of potentials for overtake, but I'm wondering if what you were talking about before about the tyre temperature or the track temperature, I mean, is starting to affect the way that some of these guys are handling the track out there. Of course, they would have been practicing with a lot cooler conditions, and now that we're in race conditions, the track temperature has increased quite a lot. So it could be playing either mentally or legitimately on drivers' minds how much this track has evolved over the last hour and a half of practice and into this race.
Yeah, that will be very important, I think. And also consider the main event later on. We will have a compulsory pit stop in that race. McQueen's put 2 tyres in the grass on the exit of the final turn there, and Sampson is closing ever so steadily, but he's now certainly close enough to probably lunge up under brakes into turn 1. No, he shows the nose, and in fact, McQueen's going to respect that there into turn 1. The door's open for turn 2, but McQueen able to keep it pretty shut there, and Sampson has to tuck back in line once again, but Yap's closing up. It's just barely over half a second covering, or not even, I'd say, between your top 3 once again. So, yeah, I was just coming back to your point there about track temperatures affecting tyre temps in particular. The way we'll see it obviously affect is not only the cars slower, but these drivers having to be more careful with the braking and the cornering and in these cars, given that you are talking about front-wheel drive and turbocharged engines, which means that you can easily spool up a fair bit of torque into the front end under acceleration, that will play a huge part in how much grip they'll have. Even through these medium-speed corners, they'll have to be really gradual and careful with their throttle application and pickup as the race goes on. If the fronts start heating up a bit much, it feels like I'm seeing right now maybe a couple of spots where McQueen may be pushing the brake in just a little bit too late and having to really, he's traveling past the preferred line on the apex, and it's starting to hurt him a fraction when it comes to corner exit. He's getting enough on the way in that it's not giving Sampson a clear shot under brakes, but the longer this race goes on, I get the feeling Sampson's going to have to find something a bit more spectacular to get a move done if he's willing to sit behind as temperatures continue to climb here in this server and presumably on those cars as well.
McQueen's not driving a perfect race, but he's doing just enough, isn't he? He's not absolutely going, hey, this is mine to win. He's just doing enough right to hold on to that spot, and nothing more. Nothing less, nothing more. Just enough. And Sampson just doesn't quite have enough at the right spots when there's those minor mistakes from McQueen to take advantage. I'll tell you what, how close was that to running those wheels off into the grass again? Not going to be close enough on this lap. Only 6 more opportunities at that final corner to go. 6 laps left on the clock. This is going to come right down to that last lap, you feel. From the way these guys are battling, the intent that's out there on track at the moment, you feel that it's going to come right down to the end.
Yeah, size everyone up. Wait as long as you can. We'll come back to the race leaders because Hayden Kirk looking up the inside of Matthew Brunt, apologies, into turns 1 and 2, and Kirk is able to get himself position number 8, and just ahead of these two guys there. I was going to say that Craig Mason is continuing to harass the rear end of Robert Crisdale. They're still as they were since lap 7, these two cars, but you can see here.
Here we go.
Ooh, there we go. Crisdale a little exposed on corner exit thanks to driving it in deep, but good traction and drive out from the Audi here of turn 4, but bit of slipstream for Mason here. Does he think about the inside? No, he's going to take the racing line here, but it's again forcing Crisdale. Well, as Crisdale is opting to run a defensive line in, narrow those entries, and that's going to be sacrificing the cornering speed the car could keep by only a couple of kilometers per hour, but every bit counts. It's a good draft up the hill, though, from Mason. That Hyundai seems to have very good mid to top end around here versus the Audi, which seems to be driving off the initial acceleration. Perhaps a bit better to counterbalance that one there, Jay, but these two guys are going to keep going at it, it would seem, all the way to the bitter end of this one.
Great fight going on. It's been clean as well. They had a little rub of door on door, and that's about it. It's been very, very respectful between these two. They've lost a fair bit of ground to the guys ahead, but they're not worried about that now. They're just wanting to have a good fight and good battle at the moment, and it's great to watch. Been very respectful.
Yeah, just watching that time difference between these two cars, ebb and flow there. Very interesting to watch, and I think you're confirming that support. The Audi seems to have that initial drive secured, but in the slipstream as well as just these longer straightaways here at Motegi, the Hyundai seems to pick up a good bit of pace as the straight goes on and turn the tables back in favour of Mason. He just needs to be a little bit closer if he can manage it on exit, whether that be by just nailing the perfect line through one of these turns or forcing an error from Crisdale. he'll need that little bit extra help to get something done here as they come across the line to start their 13th lap of this race. Our race leaders indeed are a long way up the road. And look at that, Chrisdale. Defensive so early here. It is 5 to go, which is important, of course, Jay, but Chrisdale very much showing his intentions early, which I have to say feels like it's a bit of a interesting choice there to be defending that early and saying, I won't give it up, and won't give it up by making you go the long way around. Mason at this stage, I don't think is quite close enough, and it's these it's running wide and suboptimal lines that's hurting Chrisdale more than trying to defend it aggressively into each of these corners. But, well, look at this here. Mason now right on the bumper, but he's got to go around at turn 5 if he wants it. He does try brake late here, does Mason, but he's not able to get a job done. He tries perhaps for a crisscross out of the corner, but not quite there on exit either. So up through turns 6 and 7 we go, and it's going to have to be something else as Chrisdale continues to defend those apexes here, Jay.
And Mason's just got to try maybe even to back up the tiny little bit and then use that momentum through the corner once he's forced a bit of a compromised line from Rob Chrisdale. So I don't know what he can do to get the move done. He's got the pace. He's definitely got the pace. He just hasn't quite got it in the right spot. Same as what we were saying before about McQueen versus Samson. He just can't quite get there at the right spot to take advantage of these errors from Robert Chrisdale. We'll see if he can this time. It's not going to be quite close enough. So it's going to be status quo again.
Yeah, I think so. Just watching the way Mason was tackling turn 10 there, obviously going to the outside to get the maximum rotation and angle in. But it just looked like from the outboard shots that I was watching, Jay, he was just turning in a little too early, actually, or even more to the point, perhaps could be afford to brake later into that turn 10 hairpin, and that would allow him to straighten the exit a bit more to try and get that drive off. Whereas what happened was he had to really drive it into the rear of Chrisdale, and that was sort of compromising the exit, giving the benefit back to that Audi. But once again, down the front straight, a good run off turn 14. It's just not quite enough. But again, see here, force Chrisdale into turn 1, but you can't really afford to be that flat through turn 2. Mason needs to run more speed through the corner to really open the turn 2 exit here if he wants to have a chance into turn 3. It feels like he's getting it right. If it was a single apex corner and a single corner complex, that kind of line that he's pulling there at turn 1 would be a good move. But it doesn't work here when you've got these double 90s and there's a little bit of a connector between the two of them.
He almost needs to back it up a little bit more so he's got more momentum going into the second part of that corner, doesn't he, Mason? He's almost compromising himself by that good run. He then just gets balked by Chrisdale and negates all of the hard work. Whereas if he maybe backed it up a tiny little bit and then tried to maintain the momentum, he might get a bit better run out of that second part of the turn 1-2 complex and get the run down the straight into turn 3. Be interesting to see, and maybe I'm sure there'll be people in others' ears listening to our opinion on how to do things as well. So maybe we might see something. In saying that, we're going to see something. Samson is going to take advantage of a mistake from Damon McQueen, and they're side by side down the back straight.
Oh, this has been brewing for so many laps, and finally Samson showed the nose into turn 10, and indeed McQueen deep up turn 10. That hurt him there. McQueen tries to counter down into turn 11. In fact, there you go. Samson pulls it up on the inside there, but does McQueen have the switchback for the final corner here? We jump on board with Dylan Jordan to watch it from behind these two guys. Look at this here. McQueen trying for the inside of the final turn, but he's not going to get there here. So Samson gets himself back to the race lead after waiting for nearly 14 whole laps, Jay. But McQueen is certainly not going to let that one go anytime soon, I don't think. But it now really feels like it's on Dylan Jordan. He needs to apply some pressure to McQueen here. Take the pressure off Carl's back and work together as a pair of teammates here with a rival in the sandwich. We'll have a look at the pass again, thanks to Virtual Racing School on the replay here. Down at the turn 10, you see McQueen keeps the door wide open, and as a result, Samson says, I'll take the inside line, thank you very much. He almost had to fight back there down to turn 11, Jay. The nice wide line from McQueen gave him a good run down the corner, but, well, looks like now here as we head to turn 5 in the live pitch that I'm currently still watching, he has a half-second gap, so he might just have finally pushed McQueen to the limit of his potential. As we return to live pitches there at exit turn 5, you can see that gap now just under half a second, but that's a critical half second considering the gaps that we've seen between these three guys all race long so far.
Yeah, half a second's about the most that we saw of a gap between Samson and McQueen when the roles were reversed. And saying that, that's a minor error there from Samson, but he's not going to lose any ground from it at this stage. So very, very good battle. Interesting to note too, just behind, Ewan Baker starting to close in on Matthew Pluck. Mason and Crisdale are continuing their fight, and Kirk's starting to close in a little bit on Craig Mason, and Matthew Brunt hasn't gone with them. See also in the background there Reece Gardner as well, as he recovers from his issues at the start of the race. Staying at around 4 to 5/10 of a second at the moment. A little bit of draft helping that car of McQueen, but not quite close enough to get anything done. There'll be 2 at the line. 2 laps for something to potentially happen here. There is every chance that we could see something really crazy go on between these 3.
It would be pretty surprising if something crazy does happen. Oh, look at that there. McQueen pushing hard, finds the grass at turn 14, but I think Dylan Jordan behind followed him in there, Jay, so it doesn't hurt him too much. And the slipstream still benefits Mulqueen in the second half of the straightaway there. So he keeps in touch here as we start the penultimate lap of this race in the first of the 2 for the 2-litre Tourers. And well, look at that there. Samson has got the confidence to run the racing line there, and he looks to have better runs off the corner initially, just getting time back on corner exit. So maybe an indication there, Mulqueen really willing to throw it in a bit deeper on the brakes, and that compromises the initial drive out. That's a little bit of dirt there for Mulqueen. And look at the timing. Finally spike up towards 0.6 of a second. Looks like Dylan Jordan behind once again, though. Not able to fully capitalise it. He's there, but he's not quite there enough to really pressure Mulqueen, I dare say, which means that Mulqueen can continue to keep his eyes forward on the bumper of Samson and try and find a little something that he can use to get back up right onto the rear and pressure here with a lap and a half to go.
Dylan Jordan has dropped back a little bit, hasn't he? He's not quite looking as composed as he did maybe 5 minutes ago. So is this about the point where the tyres have really gone away? Are they starting to go, well, geez, I'm glad we're going to have to pit in race 2 because my tyres are nothing at the moment. I'll tell you what, that got very, very close there for Dylan Jordan. Obviously held my breath a little bit there. It's getting a little bit tight out there. There's a little bit of aggression. Actually going to go back to this because Craig Mason is now within 2/10.
Speaking of aggression, I think these 2 guys have certainly been putting it on all race long. Once again, Mason, a good line through turn 9, but he's right on the bumper of Crisdale. Can he go to the outside? If he goes to the outside, can he send it in deep around the outside and get the right line off the turn? He needs to apex later, it seems, as he comes off of turn 10 there, right on the bumper. But again, it just looks like it's too shallow of an exit for Craig. He needs to push it in deeper on the brakes, aim for a later apex, and then you can get the run. Crisdale continuing the inside line defense. Mason's almost alongside bit for bit here into turn 11. Can he force an error from Crisdale? No, Crisdale pulls it up quite nicely on the inside line there, and he will hold that spot continuing through the final couple of turns here as they will come to take the white flag for this first race of 2 in the 2-litre Tourers. And they'll keep the fight up between them, but, well, if that attempt there is anything to go by, Joe, I think Crisdale has this covered for now. Mason continuing to be, I think, a little bit too shallow on the corner exit, or entry more precisely, I think, where he needs to try and really open the corners up, especially these double apex combinations, if he wants to get a move done into the succeeding corners, as this fighting has most certainly brought Hayden Kirk into it. Kirk now half a second off the back of Mason. If these 2 keep scrapping away, that will give Kirk maybe one final shot to get a spot off either of them here at the dying stages of this race. Good run off of turns 3 and 4 for Mason. Drops Kirk back a bit there as we jumped on board with Kirk for a moment, Jay, and then we'll go up to Crisdale because I think this might be the place to be at the end of this race.
It's a great fight, and Crisdale's done a fantastic job of defending the positions. He's lost 10 seconds to Ewan Baker over, 12 laps, but he hasn't lost any more positions since Baker got through. So regardless of the pace drop-off, it doesn't matter. It's the positions that count, and he hasn't lost any more. That's great driving, great defense.
Indeed, yeah. Sure, time loss kind of sucks in terms of not being able to catch up and stay with the guys that got past you just a moment ago, but only losing one, not being able to, or not losing any more spots because of your defensive work is a good sign indeed. We're checking in with the race leaders. It looks like all things calm at the front of the field. Half a second between first and second and third here as they come out of turn 11. 12, 13, 14 remain here for your race leaders. So He started on pole, did Carl Sampson. He had to wait, though, until the end of lap 13 to get the move done back once again, but he holds on there for the final 4 laps of the race. The number 27 is going to take the first race tonight here from Twin Ring Motegi in the 2-litre Tourers, but those 3 guys up front will certainly have a great race for us, I think, in the finale. Pluck holds on from Baker, and then they come to the line. It's going to be Crisdale and Mason. A little bit in the dirt for Crisdale there, but he will hang on to that 6th place finish there in the 808 Audi.
Great drive to hold on to that position too. Some great defensive driving. It was very, very entertaining to watch as well. So well done to those guys for keeping it clean in that group as well. Isaac Edwards will come across the line to finish this race in 10th position. And then Shane Best will be the last car, who's limped at home with extensive damage from that incident at the start of race 1. He's probably been a little bit lucky to get away with just that big crinkle in that front splitter.
Yeah, it's a good point to make there as Best brings his car around the final turn there. He'll be the last man across the line to round out our 12 finishing drivers here in the first race for the 2-litre Tourers tonight. And yes, indeed, looks to be relatively superficial damage for these cars. Well, they head to the warm-up session. We'll run through the race results real quick here, Jay. But then it's time for us to jump across to the next of our support categories, racing tonight. So, unfortunately, the results aren't quite here with us, but I'll walk you through them once again. Here, in fact, there we go. Just I'm talking all about it. They show up on screen for us now. So, Carl Sampson confirming there your race winner there, but half a second between him and Damon McQueen at the end of a 17-lap affair around the Twin Ring Motegi Grand Prix circuit. Dylan Jordan keeps our top 3 within 1 second at the checkered flag here tonight for race 1. Matthew Pluck there, not too far. Well, ended up falling back a bit after the earlier fights, which kept him half in it there, I'd have to say, Jay, but able to hold on to a P4 finish from a hard-charging Ewan Baker towards the end of it all. And then that gap back to Robert Crisdale in P6, as we said there. Pretty aggressive defense from Crisdale, but makes the most of it, hanging onto that spot with Craig Mason unable to find a way through on the 808 Audi. 7th place for Craig will be his result there in race number 1. Hayden Kirk makes it an 8th place finish here tonight. Matthew Brunt comes home in 9th, and Isaac Edwards is going to round out our 10 of 12 drivers finishing this race. So Shane Best came home 11th and was the last car on the lead lap, and Reece Gardner after that having to tow to the pit lane. Actually, pardon me, I don't believe he actually towed. My apologies. He did make it back to the pits under his own power, but down a lap taking the repairs before he could get back out there to keep racing with the field. So there are your results from race 1. Of course, race 2 coming up later tonight. Full invert grid, compulsory pits off for 2 tyres. But before we get to that, a quick break from us here at SimSpeed TV is reset. It's time for the Jetta Cup to return once again. The 10-15 reverse sprint format for those guys will take our time up next. But we'll take a quick break here. Stay with us, and we'll return in a couple minutes' time.
Stock Car Brazil is coming to iRacing. Take the wheel of the same cars that I drive in Brazil's most popular racing series. The Toyota Corolla and Chevy Cruze make their debut in the sim as part of the 2022 Season 2. Feel what it's like to handle more than 400 horsepower from a 6.8-liter V8 engine and more than 500 with push to pass. Take on the challenge of your favorite tracks, from our premier circuit at Interlagos to your favorite road and street courses around the world, with a car unlikely any you've ever driven. It takes a special set of skills to get the most out of these cars. See if you're up for the task.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to SimSpeed TV. Hope you've been able to stay with us here as we continue our coverage of tonight's racing for the Logitech G V8SCOPS Support Series, covering the 7th round of the Virtual Racing School V8SCOPS season. It's Twin Ring Motegi this weekend for the SCOPS field collectively here. And, well, we just saw the first of our opening 2-litre Tourer races, which was quite a solid race. And, in fact, before we get to the Jetta Cup, a chance to chat with one of our podium getters from that first race tonight. It's Damon McQueen, who came home in second. Well, Damon, great start for you to get to the race lead off of the front row there tonight and then hang on to that race lead for the majority of the race. Unfortunately, though, Carl able to get you there towards the dying stages, and you guys were so closely matched, you're unable to get back past before the checkered flag there tonight in race one.
Yeah, no, it was a good race, good way to open up the campaign after missing the first 2 rounds due to different reasons. So, you know, pretty happy, got a really good start. Yeah, hoping to continue it on race 2.
Yes, certainly a full invert grid will be awaiting you later on when it comes to that second race, plus the requirement to take 2 tyres at some point during that race as well, which will obviously influence strategy. How was it out there when it came to the tyres? Because we were observing the track temperature being in the low 40 degrees Celsius range. Were you sort of feeling the effects of the tyre temperature building up and heating up over time? Is that affecting your ability to sort of maintain your preferred line and pace as the race went on there?
Did notice the track temperature a wee bit, just in terms of, you know, overall cornering speed mainly, but I think I'm more hurt the tyres due to how cold it is where I am. Can't actually feel my feet, so that makes the throttle and brake a bit interesting to apply. So yeah, that was more of a mistake from me and why it looked so inconsistent during the race. So hopefully tune up the driver a wee bit. The car felt really great. Can't thank the guys at Energy Sim Racing enough. But yeah, hopefully come into race 2 and give another good crack and build some points and try and catch up on the championship.
Yes, well, we look forward to seeing you out there once again for the second race here tonight. And we'll be keeping a keen eye on how the pit strategy plays out for all of you guys at the front of that field. Good luck there, Damon. Hopefully get a chance to chat to you after the feature later on.
Cool. Cheers, guys.
So there we go. Damon McQueen come bringing it home. Second place in the first of our 2-litre Tourer races tonight. But time to turn our attention to the Jetta Cup, of course. And, well, these guys actually, shockingly, not that far off a TCR car. Now,
I'm shocked by that too, don't worry.
These cars have been the butt of the jokes when it comes to lap times in this series. That's incredibly telling. That for all of the horsepower and the racing slicks that the TCR cars have, that the lowly Jetta TDI is lapping what? Only 11 seconds slower?
Yeah, 12 seconds slower. Well, sorry, qualifying pace was 2:01. So what's that? 14 seconds. 13 and a half seconds.
In fact, actually, it's closer to 12 because it was a 2:01.9 from
you're right.
Carl Sampson and a
12.
2:14.1 from Lachlan Capel as the provisional pole time. It's just, well, there you go. So apparently, yeah, I thought these cars with the low power, the street tires, if I'm not mistaken, once again, with how these guys are shod for rubber, would just mean that they'd be horrendously slow, and the slicks and wings that the TCR car had would be beneficial. But, well, apparently, consider me wrong, as we're in the middle of qualifying, and that does mean that plenty of these guys out on track are going to get 4 flying laps, if I'm not mistaken, unless the first lap, the pit out lap, and therefore doesn't count, unless that's still 3 opportunities to get a lap on the board here, as we saw Ben Christensen come across the line there. He did a 2 minute 17.1 for a personal best there. as crucially our provisional pole sitter is lock and capable across the line. He comes now. Hasn't able to improve in behind Gavin Cox in the 555 entry and has to fire it up the inside to let himself go. So we watch the clock continue to tick down as these drivers make their way across the line. Aaron Gilbert there in the 03 Jinx Shifters entry does get a time on the board to go position number 8 on a 2:17.75. The only driver left to set a time, Reese Gardner here in the number 94, looking for a bit of redemption, I dare say, after the first race of 2 Litre Tourist tonight, Jay. 2:15.7, well, that's a good way to start. That will promote him to position number 6. It's a pretty tightly packed group here once you get into the 4th place on down, the guys in the 2:15s, it looks like.
Yeah, and we've seen that qualifying pace really means 0 in this series because the draft keeps the cars together. Regardless of if someone's a second quicker in qualifying, the draft will keep everyone in a pack anyway, so it doesn't really matter a huge amount. Sure, qualifying matters in regards to position, but that's all that matters with it. It doesn't matter about being 2 seconds quicker than everyone else. The draft keeps everyone so close, so tightly packed, and we've seen some of the best racing we have seen for the entire of 2022 in very, very small field VW Jetta racing.
It's the kind of thing that boggles the mind that somehow, yes, stick a couple of guys together on a track with a VW Jetta and apparently they can work some magic when it comes to getting a good lap on the board. So Ben Christensen here in the number 9 entry for ANZ Motorsport brings it round the final turn, looking to improve on a 2:17.0. And actually, I have to admit, on board there, it's quite the painful crawl up to the start-finish line. That will be his qualifying done. A hard cut for the Jettas, of course, as well for them due to the heat format in use for these guys as well. Ray Oliver in the 99 entry looking to try and get up from position number 3 tonight. Can he improve on a 2:14.6? Unfortunately, not a 2:14.8 for him will be the last lap he sets in qualifying. Gavin Cox, the 555, looking to improve on a 2:15. Unfortunately, he will not be able to. Dan Stevens does not improve either. Unfortunately, a 2:15.0 was his best set the lap prior. So our driver's coming across the line now, trying to find some improvement. Aaron Gilbert does improve to a 2:17.4, but we'll still be starting this one out of position number 9. Reese Gardner brings it into the lane, so 6th place start for him at this stage. And Ben Christensen will not be able to get around in time to complete this lap. So that is our grid set for the first of our Jetta Cup races here. 9 drivers will take the grid, and they line up as follows. It's Cock and Capel with the pole position here tonight. Going to start on the inside of row 1 with Kyle Ridley to his outside to contest. Once again, Ridley and Ray Oliver having been our season favourites for the most part here, but it looks like Capel's introduction to the series certainly looking to mix things up at the front of this field. Daniel Stevens starts this one out of position number 4 tonight. He'll have Gavin Cox, he's joining Ray Oliver on row 2. It's Gavin Cox and Reese Gardner to start out of positions 5 and 6. Ben Christensen and Linton Wills there out of 7th and 8th, and they're joined by Aaron Gilbert to round out your 9 drivers in this field. And as you said, Jay, whilst the qualifying time suggests that maybe the top 3 cars sit together and then we see, or maybe even they call it the top 4, and then, 5, 6, 7 group up together, well, probably 5 and 6 group together, and then 7, 8, 9 group together based on the lap times purely. You're not wrong to say that, well, these cars have delivered in drafting scenarios. This is going to be a draft-heavy track for this car once again, with all the back and forth straightaways here at Motegi. And, don't expect anyone to break away unless absolute chaos breaks out here tonight, I would dare suggest.
And there's every chance of that as well. We've seen chaos aplenty in this series over previous rounds. So there is every chance of chaos. There is every chance of calamity. There is every chance of absolute carnage. There is also every chance of us having one of the most amazing races we have ever seen. Of course, 2 races for these guys. They'll run a 10-minute race, then a 15-minute race straight after with an inverted grid. So it's going to provide a very spectacular one. Looking forward to it as we get ready for the revs to rise. Start the clock. We'll have 5 laps for race 1.
Yes, we will indeed. In fact, actually, to be honest, Joe, we might even Oh, actually, you're right. We will get 5 because with the 2:14 qualifying time, even with the slow first lap here for the Jettas as they get this standing start race underway, top 3 and make it top 4 all going pretty steady there off the line. So it's sure it'll be capable from Ridley, from Oliver, from Stevens into turn 1. Oh, I say that, but Oliver's looking a bit racy around the outside. And look at the steering Dan Stevens putting into the car there to try and keep it tucked tight on the run out of turn 2. In fact, look at that there from Ray Oliver. He's going to contest Kyle Ridley into turn 1. And it gives a half-second breakaway to Lachlan Capel at this stage. But yeah, with these cars here, that should settle down in a little bit. But that pass from Oliver on Ridley compromised his line out of turn number 3. And Dan Stevens thought about the run to turn 4, but he didn't get past here. So they tuck back in line. But Reese Gardner is now with them here as they make their way up to turn 5 here, Jay. So certainly packing up nice and tight here on this first lap once again. The Jetta's not disappointing as Gardner puts 2 in the grass. He tries to keep the pressure on Stevens round the outside, but he's surely going to have to tuck in for the run up to turn 7 here and keep the tow going amongst all these cars and don't let the guys ahead break away.
Very clean start, though. Everyone within 4 seconds of each other. So there's been no incidents, no issues. And the gap at the front is the biggest gap between any cars on track. As just behind there, you saw Gavin Cox attempting a move on Ben Christensen, not able to get it done. And that could mean that they may lose the draft from Reese Gardner. No, they're going to close it back up. The gap between Capel and Oliver got out to around about 9.5 tenths of a second. Within 2 corners, it's back to 7.5.
The ever-present ebb and flow of the tow around a circuit like Motegi as this. Aaron Gill, we jump on board with now in the 0-3 entry. He's looking to keep the pressure on Cox and Christensen together as they're both running down into turn 11 side by side. Cox on the inside there in the 555 entry. Christensen, though, will hold around the outside of turn 11, and that gives him the inside for 12 and 13. He will settle into the race lead here as we come up to the start-finish line to complete the first lap of this race. And yep, clock ticking up towards 2 minutes 20 for this opening lap. In fact, it will exceed 2 minutes 20 from there. 2:22 for P2, 2:21 for the race leader thanks to the standing start. So that just shows how critical momentum is despite it being a relatively short run to turn 1 at this circuit here. I have to suggest as that was Gavin Cox really thrashing it up the inside of Christensen to hang on to the spot there. And that definitely killed his momentum. I think it's official now. Top 5 are breaking away, and the gap has certainly opened up because, speaking of gaps, and you said the gap was closing between P1 and P2, we are now down to down to half a second. It was down as low, though, as about 3 tenths.
Yeah, it got very, very close, but tiny little mistake from Ray Oliver into turn 3 meant that it did stretch out a tiny little bit. And the secondary group, they're well and truly gone from that lead pack now. They're all over. They're not going to catch them now. So it's really a battle of 2 races now. The battle for first, the battle for 6th.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on it here as these guys make their way up the hill, keeping each other honest single file, though, to turn 7. So nothing drastic going to happen on this lap, it would seem. And well, I think back to the front would be a good idea because Ray Oliver shut the gap back down to 3 tenths. It's continuing to ebb and flow between P1 and P2. But to be honest, actually, it's quite surprising at this stage. Kyle really does not seem to be going with Ray Oliver as much as Oliver is closing or gaining and losing time to Capel directly ahead of him. Look at that gap there, less than 2 tenths on the way in. In fact, that was actually a tyre lock in the middle of the turn there. Different lines through the corner. I think Capel a little compromised, turning in a bit too early there compared to Oliver. I don't think Oliver's going to have the run here to turn 11, but he pulls out early, clearly showing intent on the way to 11 here. And he'll hit the brakes in a moment. Indeed, he will dive it up the inside, does Ray Oliver. The door gets closed by Capel, who though has to reopen the door to not get spun with contact in the rear panels. Round 12 and 13, that should give him the advantage here for the final turn. It does, but again, look at him having to throw that car around just to hang on to the spot. And that kills the momentum momentarily, but it does also bottle up Oliver. So they will keep on going here. And the clock's coming down. You know, Jay, we might... No, we should get...
It'll
we
just
should
be
get
5.
It'll just get 5. You are right. I was looking at going, they're like, 5 minutes and a bit. That might happen, but no, that would require us lapping at 2.5 minutes. So I take back any statements of a full lapper, maybe. And how about that? Fastest lap of the race, Jay, has not gone to any of our race leaders. It's gone to Dan Stevens running in P4. 2:15.0 from him is your fastest race lap so far in this one. Capel, being under pressure there from Ray Oliver, did a 2:16.1 by comparison. And that's what allowing these top 4 cars to bunch right back up. Reece Gardner's not too far behind, but does have a little bit of a gap to make up himself to Stevens directly ahead.
Linton Wills has got himself a black flag back in the field as there's a bit of contact, a little bit of argy-bargy between Dan Stevens and Kyle Ridley. So Linton Wills at the back of the field has a black flag, and that will be for not clearing a slowdown penalty. So he's cut the corner somewhere out there, probably the entrances, so through turn 4, I would be guessing, and hasn't cleared that slowdown in time and has now got a black flag. He'll probably just drive it on home and take the time penalty, because if he pits or takes the time penalty, I think it'll put him pretty much in the same spot either way.
Well, it might just disqualify him from the race results, but at this point too, that also really doesn't mean all that much when it comes as far as I'm aware, an iRacing disqualification like that won't kick him out of the server entirely. It'll just invalidate the result for race 1. And with a full invert grid, actually that would be a very curious test. If Linton Wills doesn't serve the drive-through penalty and iRacing does issue a disqualification instead of an extended penalty, does that permit him to get that reverse grid start? As again at turn 11, Ray Oliver looking for the inside of Capel. It sent Capel to the dirt. He wasn't able to turn down like he wanted to, having to open the door a fraction to avoid contact once again. These guys are throwing everything at it here for the race lead when it comes to attack and defense. But once again, oh, look at them. Both drivers putting left side tires in the grass, trying to maximize the exit. And as a result, it kind of stalls the run here to turn 1. And indeed, 3 minutes on the clock. We'll have 2 more to go of this in the first of our Jetta Cup races. And again, Winter Wills, actually, no, Winter Wills is going to be responsible here and serve the penalty under. We don't get to see a live experiment during this race here.
Interesting that Oliver and Capel haven't registered official lap times as of yet too, so they're pushing it at the absolute maximum they can, which is surprising to say when you look at how these cars are behaving. You don't think that there's too much of a maximum in these cars, but they're working them hard. They're trying their best to make sure that the momentum continues on and is pushed as far as it can go. As around the outside tries Oliver. He's got to be careful of Ridley coming through here.
Yeah, not able to make it work that time. Oh, and then Oliver just blinks for good measure. That's the kind of thing you don't want to see, well, either when you're attacking or you're defending here. And there we go. So the white line defense has come out from Capel. Looks like he's decided to take the playbook out of Rob Crisdale's approach to that first race. Is on board with Kyle Ridley. That is Daniel Stevens trying to find a way through into P3. And, oh, he got very close to making something happen there, but not able to secure something on this lap. So through turn 9, they go up to turn 10. Oliver's continuing to blink every now and again, which that'll be problematic for Capel and Ridley both, because Capel obviously knows that Oliver, not afraid to have a send, as it were. And if a car blinks out before it goes for the send, then you don't know where exactly he's going to go. Look at this here. Capel opts to break the toe down to turn 11. Oliver decides not to even bother going with him here, Jay. He's going to stay on the racing line and call the bluff.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that too, and hasn't halted the momentum or the pace at all. So surprising that sort of move happening there. So they're going to come to the line now to receive the white flag. Last lap of this race, and we'll reverse the grid and go at it again. This is going to be a very, very entertaining finish to this one. 1 minute on the clock.
All right, Barney, give us that white flag here at the line. He does indeed. Flapping that flag away there on the pit wall. Background is shot for a moment there. So who can crack the egg here for race number 1? Can Capel hold on at the front? It'll be Ray Oliver to make a decisive dive to wrap this one up here as we jump on board with his race leader and look out the back of his VW Jetta towards P2. I think at this stage, I would say Capel looks to have just enough in the tank to hang on to the race win. But, well, these cars, you could easily overdrive it on the way into the corner, on the way out of the corner. For all we know, Ray Oliver's going to just absolutely send it under brakes and just throw caution to the wind there. You can see this time down to turn 5, he will follow Capel to the outside of the track. Obviously, a front-wheel drive car once again tonight. You do want to open the corners as much as you can, but that looks more like trying to follow the slipstream there, Jay. But nothing into turn 5 this time for any of our top 4 cars. They're still keeping Reese Gardner at arm's length there. So unless something absolutely chaotic happens, going to come down to one of these 4 at the front of the field. And another blink again for Ray over there, up into turn 8, 7 and 8 here. And that's a good run on the middle part of those turns. Capel trying to back it up, perhaps to drive out of turn 8. That's compromised him a little bit, at least made him vulnerable to the dive at turn 9, perhaps.
Oh, that is so close. There was almost contact there. Good driving to make sure that there wasn't contact. They're both pushing, maintaining pace. Dan Stevens, I think, is the most likely to potentially get a move here. He's getting really involved in this one.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. And up the inside here, Stephen. No, pardon me, around the outside. Apologies. Oh, Stevens, I didn't check in there to see that we're on board with the number 1 car. But there you go. He's certainly putting Ridley under pressure. That means it's a two-way fight for the race lead. Two-way fight for P3. Who's going to get it done here? Capel is still holding that inside line. Oliver did not have the run off turn 10, it would seem. So down into that final corner we go. Bump from Stevens into Ridley. That sends Ridley way wide there. Stevens, though, checks up. He's going to make sure to redress that. So they stay as they are. One final chance for Ray Oliver. Can he get the run through the final couple of turns? Can he force an error and run Capel into the dirt? No, he will not. They will finish as they started this lap, but it's going to be dang close at the line. Oh, careful there, Lockie. I wouldn't be doing too much of that here before that one, because that actually closes the gap down to a 10.5 at the line. But they finish the lap as they started. All 5 across the line. Nothing in it between any of them there at that stage. Jay, and then the last couple of drivers make their way across, and unfortunately Linton Wells will be on his way home at some point later on in this race. And we are told by race control it was a jump start for the 842 entry. That is what saw him get that black flag, which actually... yes, it is. It was he jumped forward, got it stopped again, but unfortunately had left the pit box before the green flag flied. So that will have paid put to his chance at a race result. But he will get pole position for the reverse here in a second. Pardon me. Here are your race results for race 1, though. Lachlan Capel makes it another race win here in the Jetta Cup after his joining of the series back at Sebring last time out. Ray Oliver keeps him honest, though. Barely a 10th in it between the two of them at the line. Kyle Ridley and Daniel Stevens finish as they were. Stevens redressing that bump into turn 11, but it does mean that they dropped a fair way off the fight for P1 and P2. Reese Gardner rounds out our top 5, not able to quite hang with our top 4 drivers on lap pace. And we'll see what that does to this reverse here in a second. Gavin Cox, the next across the line in the 555 middle finger car. It's a P6 finish for him. He had Ben Christensen not too far back there in P7, and Aaron Gilbert in P8 to round out our guys there in that front group. And Linton Wills made it across the line there to finish in 9th. Unfortunately, a minute 16 behind, thanks to the black flag penalty from iRacing. They need to come and serve during that race. Well, there is a tiny warm-up here of 1 minute to allow the guys to take a micro break and basically allow us to run through the race results. So we will basically sit here and wait a second and wonder and ponder who can get the best start, because it will be Linton Wills on the outside for turn 1, thanks to the fact that the safety car unofficially occupies the front, well, does occupy the front grid slot due to the fact that it is the Porsche Cayman GT4 manual safety car in the server tonight, Jay. And then that will mean, obviously, that Aaron Gilbert will be the first one with the inside line to turn 1, but it will be a staggered grid at this circuit, meaning you'll have to try and overcome the small gap between him and Linton Wills if he wants the apex and the race lead at turn 1 here.
1 minute on the clock now. So we've got our final little countdown till we get the green flag. Won't take too long before that will tick down and we'll get underway. As we said, 15 minutes on the clock. Judging by when they cross the line for that last race, we'll be up for a 7-lap race in this one. 15-minute in length, so it should be about a 16-minute race in total for this one. We saw how difficult overtaking was in both the TCR and in the Jettas. So reverse grid in this race, and also when we get into our main event coming up next for the TCRs, It's going to be very, very interesting. Will we see much overtaking? How difficult is it going to be? And who will be the one that can get it done best?
Yeah, that's going to be an important thing to know. Now, I think also curiously, how many manual safety cars were in the 2-litre Turo Server? Like 4?
Yes.
Okay, so the front 2 rows will be vacated then once we get to that.
Yes.
Oh, was that a jump start for Ben Christensen? I think that might have been. I wait to see. Yeah, big black flag to the number 9 car. Unfortunately for him, Linton Wills takes the field down to turn 1. Actually has the inside line there, interestingly, at this circuit, despite technically starting out of the second grid spot. But Aaron Gilbert around the outside in the 0-3. But Stevens is around at turn 1. As we're talking about the front drivers at the field, unfortunately, though, trouble there at the start of the race. So already drama. In fact, it actually, crucially, has seen Lachlan Capel drop behind the pack of cars. He's got Kyle Ridley with him, but Ray Oliver is up the road with that lead pack, and, well, that could seriously change the result of this race. Capel and Ridley have mechanical black flags.
And we've seen previously that the mechanical black flags come out in these cars for the most minor of contact. So that's devastating for those guys, but interesting to see in the same breath. We'll see if we can pick up exactly what happened here with Stevens, Capel, and Ridley.
So off the start we go. Watch for the 27, the first of the down under sim esport cars going to the inside of turn 1 there on Dan Stevens. So around here goes, contact there, and then, oh, look at that. Left rear to right front nudge for those two boys. After all that, these tyre corners are absolutely insane when it comes to fragility. That's all it took for a mechanical black flag for both of those guys. And, well, look at the steering damage that Capel's incurred from that. That's a good 30-odd degrees of left hand down from a simple nudge.
There was nothing in that incident at all, was there?
Which was also, I think, netcode induced.
Wow, look, that's not 30 degrees, that's over 45. That's crazy. Oh, speaking of crazy.
Oh, 2 by 2 by 2 to turn 11 we go. Linton Wills, oh my goodness, decides the apex is optional, the grass is what he wants, and absolutely fires down the inside. Actually, he's going to back the entire field up here.
3-1.
Oh my goodness me, that's Christensen. That'll be Gavin Cox and Aaron Gilbert. Oh my goodness, they're absolutely thrashing the cars here. Capel brings it on to pit lane. Surprisingly, Kyle Ridley's pressed on with despite his mechanical black flag. So that can't be long there. Reece Gardner temporarily goes to the race lead, but it's going to be Ray Oliver who gets the chance to go up front. Reece leaves the door nice and open there through turns 1 and 2. Maybe try and slot in behind for a run down into turn 3 and 4. But look at them still going. Kyle Ridley is opting to press on here, but, well, mechanical black flag for him. There's no way he stays out here all too long, because this race will go long enough that can't get away with trying to get to the end before the mechanical black flag forces him down to the lane, lest he be, at the very least, heavily penalised, if not fully disqualified. And you can see there the steering damage on his car, not too severe in contrast to Capel's car. And just watching on my overlay timer, looking like a unfortunately lengthy pit stop for Capel here, already up past 40 seconds stationary in the box, whereas Dan Stevens, having been spun and lightly damaged, it seems, does a quick 20-second fix-up to get this race underway and get back out there, I should say.
It's amazing, these cars, the damage that can be sustained when it's wheel-on-wheel contact. We saw it in Interlagos. I believe it was Reece Gardner in that first race, wasn't it?
Yes,
Turn
it
1.
was. Yes, it was.
We were like, wow, he's hardly even hit the car and he ended up with a mechanical black flag. So crazy how little damage can cause such a huge effect in these cars. This is a good battle though for third at the moment. It will turn into a one-car battle probably at the end of this lap, because Ridley at the front, Christensen at the back, both need to come into the pits for different reasons. I would guess that Ridley's damage will mean that his pit stop won't be too lengthy though.
Yeah, it seems to be driving quite nicely for him so far, but, well, I'll be very curious to see how long his pit stop is, because that will sort of dictate, well, how reasonable is the mechanical black flag. Meanwhile, Gavin Cox there trying to get up the inside of Ridley at turn 11, doesn't commit under brakes and backs out on the exit. So through the last couple of turns we go, and Ridley, no, he does not pit. Christensen will go to the lane to clear his black flag for the jump start. But, well, how about that? Ridley is pressing on. I hope he knows he's got a mechanical black flag. It will have come up. It will have come up on his, the in-game overlay somewhere. But it would seem he continues to press on without a care for that penalty in the world because, well, unfortunately, Lachlan Capel, 2 minutes stationary in the box, is still waiting out that service. If he is opting to stay in the race, we'll have to wait and see if he chooses to get back out there and get some points for at least finishing at the required distance in this race. But the other thing with the required distance metric there is Ridley's deep through turn 3. Gavin Cox tries for the inside at turn 4, and it will be a drag race down to turn 5 for these two guys. Is that, in fact, Capel? Yes, Capel has unfortunately left the session, so we will not see the 018 back out on track. Because the minimum distance requirement in this series, of course, as all other OSR and V8SCOPS related events this season, Jay, mean that, of course, every lap here in the Jetta Cup is so much more of a percentage compared to what we normally talk about when it comes to even the other support category events here, because we're doing that a few laps around these circuits, / we've got quite a short race to cover here tonight as Ridley and Cox are still going at it here. Cox is up to he's in 4th and trying to get 3rd. He will get 3rd at some point soon, but, well, Kyle really doesn't want to give it up without a fight, it seems. It does mean that it's very much now a 2-horse race for the win tonight if Reece Gardner can hang on to the back of Ray Oliver, but we have to wait and see on that one, as we can see here on board with Cox trying to really turn that car around and get the drive off the exit. Looks all right here, Jay, but I get the feeling Ridley won't be braking too early here to give it up that easily.
No, he'll be trying to fight, and of course it will turn into nothing because we've already talked about that that meatball flag that he's got, the mechanical black flag. Talking about that percentage that you were referring to there, of course, 75% race distance from memory, the minimum requirement in each and every race. If you don't hit that, you're basically considered a DNF. 75% of a 7-lap race means you've got to finish 5 laps. 75% of a 17-lap race, which we'll see later on, will be 13 laps. So it's a bit different to think, for Lachlan Capel, he was going to be ended up 3 laps down, so he's going to be a DNF anyway, even if he does finish the race. So yeah, not much point in him continuing on, unfortunately, and that's one of the sad things about the damage that he sustained in that was so minor, but it just caused so much legitimate damage to his car.
Yeah, just want to double check actually the rules and regulations. I remember at one point it was 75%, but I believe it was stepped down to 2/3 or 67%.
It's still 5 out of 7 in this series, this race anyway.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, as you said there, indeed, that will be most important and unfortunately affect things there. Yes, indeed, it is 67% of the race distance, which applies to all SCOPS and SCOPS support races, which means that, yes, for these short races, have to have been back out there already, and, well, that was pit stop that didn't seem to want to end, and, well, he called it quits at 2 minutes and 45 seconds of stationary time to repair the thing. Well, let's talk about the drivers who are still out on track, though, Jay, and you've picked up Aaron Gilbert here. We're looking at the back of the 03 Jetta in in P4 for Gilbert here. Looking at Linton Wills, who's running around in position number 5 in that 842 entry tonight. And, well, looking here, also see Kyle Ridley. You said the damage looked minor, by the way, on Kyle Ridley's car. He's already up to 1 minute and 30 in repairs. He has a good chance of going a lap down here to Ray. He did complete 3. Actually, no, he hasn't completed 3 laps, apparently. He is on lap 3. So, yes, you're right. If he can't get this car back out there for this race, Jay, that will indeed be a 0-point race for Kyle as well. As we have a close look
confirming
at
what you were talking about before. It is a straight tire.
Close look at the damage to that tire, but also, yes, the tire modelling, visually at least, as Ridley drops into 8th place as his damage clock is continuing to count upwards towards 2.5 minutes here. So race leader goes on to lap number 4. Lap number 5 for Ray Oliver, and Ridley is stuck back at the end of lap number 3, so that will certainly be a bit of a pain there. Looks like Ray Oliver checking out at the front of the field here, Jay. Unfortunately, we're not going to see the battle that we saw in race number 1. It looks like it will be Ray Oliver's race to lose here tonight, which means one of our closest fights is indeed this battle here over position number 4 between Aaron Gilbert and Linton Wills. Less than 3/10 in it off of turn 4 there between the two of these guys, and down towards turn 5 we go. Linton showing the nose, but that won't help him on the exit. In fact, he's a little deep there. Almost completely takes the rear of Gilbert's car off if such a bumper removal could be done. But stays close enough here. He's actually getting a nice run up the hill behind Gilbert to turns 7 and 8, closing the gap down to about 4/10 once again. So the back and forth between these guys also continuing on here.
Yeah, this is the closest fight out on track, and Linton Will's just not quite able to get ahead, is he? He's just there, but not quite able to get it done. He's got to try and enforce a mistake from Aaron Gilbert to get this move done, you would think. Gap at the front has stretched out to just on 2 seconds now, so Gardner not quite able to keep with the car of Ray Oliver. And Kyle Ridley still stuck in the pit, so he will be a DNF regardless as it looks at this stage. Unfortunate for him because he had great pace in race 1 and had great pace even with that damage, which is so disappointing.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of quirk, I guess, of racing these cars. You learn apparently where not to hit them. The answer is don't hit them in the corners. They will crumple, and crumple dramatically so. As 3.5 minutes on the clock, the race leaders have gone through to start lap number 6, so they'll come back around and we will get 7 on the board for this feature race here. We'll keep watching this battle for P4, as you can see on your timing tower to the side of shot, that indeed this is our battle to keep an eye on here. And it all looks kind of same for now, Jay, and not looking too different here. Bit of ebb, bit of flow. These guys lapping in the 2-minute 17s. Gilbert had the edge last lap by nearly 3/10. So Linton Wills see if he can find himself a little something extra into these turns to improve on that there for him. That would probably be handy, I would think, in his case, but you can see a little shallow on the way into some of these turns, I think, compared to Gilbert, who we're riding on board with, and that's going to be critical when it comes to maintaining corner speed and then getting yourself the preferred exit line. That looks a little better, though, at turn 5 there for Linton, and not too far wide at the exit there. A little bit of grass, though, will slow him down a fraction, it seems, on the way up the hill this time.
There are only 2 minutes left on the clock, and then once this race completes, we will go back to the racing in our 2-litre Tourers. Reverse grid from what we saw in race 1, which should provide a very interesting battle. Fingers crossed we see Robert Northway back after his unfortunate incident with Reece Gardner in that first race. Fingers crossed we see a full field back out on track, but you can understand the disappointment we saw from Northway after that incident at the start.
Yeah, that will be important to see. We hopefully have good news for you there on that front when we get to that point of the race. And we continue to watch this fight for P3 as the race leaders just coming around. Ray Oliver's coming around the final turn now, so he will receive the good old white flag from Barney, the flag man there, with his patented flap the flag technique, I have to say. Is that an appropriate description for the way Barney waves his flag? A flap?
I guess so. Oh, tell you what, wheel slide. Can't call it wheel spin from Ray Oliver, but the wheel slide there from Ray Oliver was intense. It was a brilliant noise. I don't think it was fast, but it sounded amazing.
Yeah, the four-wheel. Yeah, and you can't. I can't call it power slide. You're right about that. It's not.
It's just a. Bleh, isn't it? It's just nothing.
It's just a slide, which I think in itself it has its own kind of emphasis. As we continue to watch this fight for P4, Wills closing in a fraction under brakes, but doesn't have the exits he needs to really get something out of Aaron Gilbert here. Which in turn, I think also saying Gilbert smart enough to not push the issue out of these turns in that car ahead. He'll get the right line out of the turns where he needs and hang on to his spot here. Look at that though from Linton Wills. He's willing to show the nose on the way out of turn 5. That's a good slipstream up the hill from turn 6. So yeah, if you ever said that these cars don't have slipstream, well, we're here to prove you wrong with that kind of an example. Coming up the hill like that really bogs down the car ahead as through 7 and 8 they go. Will's willing to put a wheel in the grass there. Again, a little narrow on the way in, and I don't think he's got the line right through the corner there. He'll be close, but he needs to make a miracle work here through turn 10 to get one proper shot down into the turn 11 corner at the end of the Eastern Complex start-finish straightaway. Speaking of that straightaway, here is your race leader heading down that straight now. Ray Oliver into turn 11. 3 corners to negotiate now for your race leader. And, well, uncontested at the tune of 2.5 seconds in the feature here, thanks to the retirements of his closest rivals, unfortunately. So, through those corners he comes, nice and steady from the 99, and, well, didn't quite get there in race 1, but brings it home just the way he'd like. That's a P2 and a P1, and that'll be a nice haul of points for the championship here in the Jetta Cup for Ray Oliver to move forward after this week. Reece Gardner recovers the P2, and it's Gavin Cox there bringing it home in 3rd. Linton Wills will hold, Aaron Gilbert will hold off Linton Wills to round out your top 5 there, and then we Ben Christensen and Daniel Stevens to finish this race. Kyle Ridley did return to the circuit, Jay, but he is only on... Actually, he's on his 4th lap, but we did say that...
Yeah, it's not quite 67. 4 of 7, is it?
Yes.
My maths says that's about 60... 60...
I'll 57%, how about that?
Yeah, 57, yeah. I was going to say
So
62, but no, 57 sounds even better.
I'll just, good old 4 divided by 7. That helps there. So unfortunately for Kyle Ridley, he has returned to the circuit. 8 minutes and 20 seconds of repairs for reference. And, well, he will still get a big fat 0 next to his name for that one there. Well, as he continues around, it means we can't technically bring up the race results, or the overlays might not allow us to check out the race results. In fact, actually, there we go. It will let us see those results on screen for you now. So there's the gaps for your top 7 at the end of the feature race here in the Jetta Cup from Motegi this week. Ray Oliver with the win ahead of Reece Gardner by 2.4 seconds. Gavin Cox makes a good recovery for him into P3 at 5.8 back from the lead. Aaron Gilbert holding on ahead of Linton Wills for 4th and 5th. And then Ben Christensen, unfortunately, having to serve that penalty. We'll see him finish back in P6. But Dan Stevens goes from a solid start to a bit of a nightmare end. And in fact, one of our 3 drivers really have a bit of a shocker there. But Kyle Ridley and Lachlan Capel, our biggest losers of them all, as Ridley makes it across the line to finish his race officially there now as well. So that's going to do it for the Jetta Cup. This time out at Motegi, of course, the Jetta Cup will return at the next V8SCOPS round, which, pardon me, I've actually had drawn a bit of a blank on where that will be.
Sonoma.
Yet, answer is Sonoma in 3 weeks' time. So that's when you can expect the Jetta Cup back. But we'll take another quick break here at SimSpeed TV and gear back up for the final race of the evening, the feature for the 2-litre Tourers. 17 more laps of racing to come, a pit stop to come as well for those guys, and an inverted grid once again. So a lot of action to come your way. Stay with us as we take a quick break here for a couple of minutes and get ready to go again.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
Welcome back, and we're here once again for the final race tonight at Motegi for the Logitech G V8SCOPS Support Series as part of round 7 of the Virtual Racing School V8SCOPS Series for 2022. My name is Daniel Yeaman, Jake Kennedy alongside me in the commentary box and doubling up on production this week. And we're here now in the final minutes of practice / warm-up for the 2-litre Tourers. Here is that format once again, a full reverse grid, compulsory pit stop for at least 2 tyres, and 17 more laps of racing. And while we certainly know, Jay, who our favourite 3 probably are for this one here, if race 1 has anything to go by, but I suppose with a pit stop in hand too that needs to be considered, we could have a couple of surprise packets able to stay a little bit closer as this race progresses here tonight for the finale.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, the track's evolved from when we were last in for this event for the TCRs, the 2-litre Tourers. So it's going to be interesting in that aspect. But the other part is a few drivers out of position. Of course, Reece Gardner had a horrible race in regards to his issues early on, getting damage fixed. So he'll start from the front of the field. So I guess in a way that's a positive for him to take away from that negative from that race. Watching the guys that finished at the front, the trio of Dylan Jordan, of Carl Sampson, and of Damon McQueen. Brain didn't want to work there for a second. Watching those 3 come through the field and what has proven to be a very difficult track to overtake in our Jetta Cup race and also in race 1 of the 2-litre Tourers. It's going to mean that this is going to be very, very entertaining, very, very interesting. Curveballs are plenty to come. Bring it on.
Yeah, so the full invert grid also will mean that obviously guys are starting reverse, but also it doesn't particularly help that we actually have 4 manual safety car team members here tonight. We also have Reese Harnell, who, because he registered for the server at some point earlier on, was here during the practice phase of the session.
And Robert Northway as well.
And Robert Northway too. That's true. We have not seen Northway return. So, in fact, pole position does go to Reese Gardner, but he will be in the 7th grid slot. That's how many cars
positive to take away from that is that he will have a little bit more of a run into turn 1.
Yes, I suppose that is the takeaway from all. This is longer run to turn 1, and it's going to be a fascinating one in terms of the fact that we have that many cars serving as race control members. The 2 absent drivers tonight, since Northway has not opted to return, and with no sign of Reese Harnell since practice. But race control have flipped the switch. It's time to get to the grid now. It'll be a short gridding phase, we believe, and then get this 17-lap final race underway here from Motegi tonight. So let's walk you through that grid once again. And of course, we have to skip the first 6 positions before we actually get to our first driver who we have in the server to take the grid. So effective P1, although, as we said, technically starting out at P7 for this one tonight, is Reese Gardner in the number 94, looking to recover after the horror show of stalling it out at the start of the first race earlier tonight. He'll have Shane Best alongside him in net P2. Isaac Edwards will start out of what is P3 with Matthew Bruns on his inside for 4th. Excuse me once again. Oh dear. It has not been a great night for me. They're coughing and spluttering my way through this one this evening. Hayden Kirk will carry on. This is going to start out of P5 with he'll have Craig Mason alongside him for position number 6. Robert Crisdale to P7, Ewan Baker to P8, Matthew Pluck P9, Dylan Jordan P10, and then Damon McQueen and Carl Sampson 11th and 12th. All your drivers taking part in this one. So I hear revs, and because that is why we're here, revs, there's the grid. We're underway with the final race of the 2-litre Tours, and again a ballistic start from the Audi of Matthew Brunt. This time is the first one at the front of the field. He goes past Shane Best on the inside. Reese Gardner tries to contest around the outside of turn 1, but it is a very hot track out there, and Gardner might just be able to hang on to the inside for the run to turns 3 and 4 here, but he can get the speed down. I think Brunt's going to challenge around the outside. See, do we have any movers and shakers here at the start of this field? A bit of shuffling around as Carl Sampson, Dylan Jordan are trying to make their way through. Damon Mulqueen missed the race start. Oh, no trouble for one of our guys who we definitely said was in contention for this race. There's men in the grass. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, that's Craig Mason and Hayden Kirk going way out into the ditch. Before turn 5, Robert Crisdale wants a piece of the action in behind these two and almost runs into the back of Mason. He keeps it together just here as these guys try and get their way through turn 6. Look at Crisdale trying to get on the charge and get back past Mason as he did in the first race up the inside at 7. For Crisdale, looks to have that one done for now unless Mason can get something else done here. But no, look how hard he's pushing into the dirt. He pushes himself. That will send 2 of the Kiwi sim racing cars up the inside. Matthew Pluck and Ewan Baker, but Carl Sampson's back there next. And in fact, look at that there. We've got 3 wide between Carl Sampson, Dylan Jordan and Isaac Edwards dicing it out around turn 9 there. Edwards has unfortunately slumped all the way back from what was second effectively at the start of this race. Third in this race, all the way back to 11th in the majority of a lap. And Damon Mulqueen has got the loneliest race of them all by himself, having missed the race start here.
With how crazy this start has been, there is every chance of us getting a safety car. So he's not out of it. Use this to his advantage, pit out a sequence, do something different, find himself some positions, but miss the start, unfortunate for him. Did see he was having some tech issues just before the race start and had to disconnect and reconnect and just missed the race start. So unfortunate for him. This is a little bit off the track there for Hayden Kirk. Continue on though, but a little bit of a mistake there. Going to find himself right tucked in underneath that rear wing of Shane Best, but we'll get this done.
Yeah, look at them though, 2 by 2 through 1 and 2. As we said there, Mason and, Shane Best and Kirk there. Robert Christo puts Matthew Pluck in the grass for a second there. Ewan Baker will get on through as a result, but oh boy, hang on, Pluck's coming back through. He wants to get back on the rear of Christo and possibly let him know how he thinks about that one there. So watch out, Ewan. Got a teammate who wants to get on with racing. In fact, Baker drives it into the dirt around turn 4 as he tries to keep his foot in it. And, this race certainly has definitely had a bit more argy-bargy about it here. And if I look at the Kiwi sim racing guys, they're racing each other incredibly hard there as Baker almost put it into the rear bumper of Pluck through turn 5. So watch out, boys. It's all holds there as, in fact, Craig Mason up the inside of Baker through turn 6, but it's the outside for 7. If he can hold there, though, it's the inside for turn 8. The back and forth of this circuit. They're going to almost change places there, Jay, but once again, Baker is going to get the inside this time for turn 9 as Christel's dived Shane Best and gotten up the inside of him, but we might just get 3 wide as Matthew Pluck behind got the better run, but again had to tuck in slightly. Bit of a compromise there for Pluck. Can he get round the outside and get the drive off of turn 10? Wary of Shane Best he is and has to give Best a lot of space, but he does get the drive around the outside of turn 10. He will take that place away from to Honda and up 10 spots technically from his grid position is Matthew Pluck. Next target is Robert Christel ahead of him there on the circuit as they come down the end of the back stretch for the end of lap 2. Pit window opens here. Does anyone take to the lane straight away? The answer is not from the top of the field. Gardner, Brunt, Kirk, Christel, Pluck, they all go through. In fact, a bad run through the final turn for Pluck, but early drivers Carl Sampson and Dylan Jordan, they are going to get themselves out of the train and get those tyres on the car. They've got the confidence to run this thing to the end. As around the outside, it's going to have to be for Matthew Pluck. We've seen Christel White line the defense here so much in the first race, but look at the line from Pluck. He's going to force the issue, and in fact, Christel doesn't have a defense, Jay. That's going to be surely job done here coming up to turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, beautiful driving there from Matthew Pluck to get that done. And have a look just behind. You can see Shane Best trying to defend there from Ewan Baker and almost makes wheel-to-wheel contact. Over-under going to work here because now Mason might get through. No, not quite close enough. So some good driving there. Sampson and Jordan both away and out of the lane. 23.5 second pit stop for Sampson. 25.5 for Dylan Jordan. So lengthy pit stops, but now we know what to expect in regard to pit strategy.
Yeah, it will be a case of no fuel, tyres only, since whilst you could take fuel whilst you're doing the tyres in this TCR class, certainly no need to limit yourself, I dare say, when it comes to how much fuel, how long you can go before pitting for tyres. But that will be curious to note. We did talk about changing weather, and well, how about this? It's a 21-degree air temperature. That's up 2 degrees since we last were here with the first race, which was about 10:30 in virtual morning. It's nearly midday virtual time at Motegi, and it's now up to 49 degrees Celsius track temperature, up 6 degrees Celsius since I last checked that surface. So if you thought tyre life was a problem, it could be an issue perhaps, but I think we know now what to expect in particular from those two guys. Sampson and Jordan, their play will certainly be to work together nice and steady, but clean air here means that they can just run laps and manage their pace here. Our race leader, Reece Gardner, did a 2:03.7 last time around. Fastest car on track, though, was Damon McQueen. Did a 2:03.5, but still, unfortunately, in no man's land and will be swallowed up the field when they do their pit stops at some point and then come back through at their due convenience. So, just back towards the front of the field
before
here.
Before we go back to the front, just on that that track temp, I was actually surprised at how much the track was being used while we were off covering the Jetta Cup. Came back and the track was very, very worn. So there were a lot of laps cut during that session, which obviously impacted the track temperature. We've seen in other rounds the track not get used at all. And that's strategic because they know that that will help cool the track down for when it comes race time. So surprising to see how much the track was used and how much the track temperature has increased in that hour or so since we were off with the Jetta Cup.
Yeah, that's a good point to make there indeed. Of course, getting the cars running around here on circuit will certainly put the work through the circuit. But we'll talk about those kind of things later because crucially here, Robert Christgau on the defense once again. This time it's Ewan Baker who wants to have a shot at him. Look at there, Baker thought about trying to get up the inside as we were looking from the back of Christgau's car, and then on board now with Baker's car up into turn. I can see here Christgau already defending with a narrow entry into these turns, and that acceleration from the Audi off of these slower corners really seeming to favour that kind of defensive line here, Jay. Once again, it would seem that despite the fact it seems counterintuitive somewhat, if you're not under huge amounts of pressure, why compromise yourself? The Audi is the car to be in if that's the way you want to drive around here.
It seems to like that sort of style of driving, doesn't it? It's not what you would expect, but it seems to be working quite well for Christgau. It worked brilliantly in race 1, and it seems to be working decently at the moment in race 2. I mean, he's currently in 5th position. He's got Baker, who had a lot of pace in race 1 and only went through due to a sort of issue, I guess you would say, from Christgau and followed other drivers through. So that's sort of how that played out. We've got pit stops galore from the front of the field. Brunt, Kirk, Mason and Edwards into the pits. So a fair bit of pit stop action happening on this lap.
So there we go. Another 4 drivers. We'll wait to see what the response is like from Carl Sampson and Dylan Jordan, and as to where these guys, they've all come into the pits. Filer in relation to these two, they've had a lap to get going. Now, their out laps were a 207.5 and a 207.9 respectively. Brunt and Kirk are off the jacks and rolling, and I think there, Jay, they're going to be comfortably ahead by turn 1 because we should see them pop out of the pit lane like so, just out the front of the screen. And yes, they will cover off Sampson and Jordan. Now, the thing with the TCR cars is that, yeah, these tyres on these cars do not have heaters, or at least that's the way they drive. So expect the front end of those 2 cars ahead to be like ice. And in fact, critically there, Sampson and Jordan 2:03.1 for their first flyers. That is an indication of the pace you can expect with fresh rubber if you work the car into it nicely on the out lap there.
Now, it looks like Craig Mason may have taken all 4 tyres because he had about a 10-second longer pit stop. Only 2 tyres is the requirement. There is a noticeable difference in pit stop time when you do take 2 versus 4 tyres. So Mason may have lost a little bit of ground there from that minor error. Sampson already on this lap has already closed in just over 3/4 of a second.
That tells you a lot about tyre temperature, but it does mean that at this rate, Kirk and Brunt still have a bit of time left to get those tyres switched on and be ready for when Sampson arrives on their rear bumper. Back up to Chris Dale and Ewan Baker here. They're now fighting over 3rd place on circuit. Neither opting to pit this time by again. Be interesting perhaps that maybe Baker not trying to do an undercut here, get the pit stop out of the way. It does obviously hurt a little bit perhaps. In fact, that is probably one of the things to consider there, is that some series you talk about undercuts being effective here. This is probably a series where the overcut maybe makes more sense if you've looked after the tyres enough that when you go to make a push lap for your in lap, your car won't complain too much and you can make use of the tyres rapidly here. As we check back in with the other guys who have made their pit stop, Brunt and Kirk, and yeah, there is Carl Sampson. Now the gap 3/10 to one of his Kiwi sim racing compatriots there as they come through the last couple of turns here to get this out lap done. Or Hayden Kirk and Matthew Brunt in particular. And look at that there. Kirk is pushing, but that's pushing a bit too much. Sampson's closing, but he's not got the overlap yet, Jay. And no, Kirk will roll out of it there. In fact, he's going to make that nice and easy for his KSR compatriot there. He knows that the best method option for him, I think, at this stage is definitely tuck in behind. Let Sampson do a bit of the dirty work with warmer tyres on this lap and see if he can make Brunt crack and then go through with him straight away afterwards as we see them head down to turn 3. Meanwhile, there's one of our back up to our guys who haven't pitted yet because you can see the gap less than 3/10 between Chris Dale and Baker, and it got down to under 2/10 there between turns 7 and 8 once again.
A crazy battle, isn't it? It's a crazy fight between these two, and Chris Dale again showing that he can be quick with a solid defense. He doesn't have the lap pace, but he's just doing everything right at the right moments to hold the position. That Audi just seems to have the drive out of the corner. It doesn't have the pace in any other point of the track or any other point of the lap. It's just the drive out of the corner, and that is it. After they get up to about third or fourth gear. There's nothing more that Crisdale needs to do. He's done everything he has to. So the Audi definitely doing a good job in defending out there for Rob Crisdale. Ewan Baker, though, definitely has the pace. He just can't get through.
Yep. And speaking of defending of an Audi, we should check in with Matthew Brunt because Carl Sampson had a go at him at turn 9. And once again, we saw an Audi, or I saw an Audi, I should say, was able to give the space up on the apex, Jay, and just absolutely drive off around the outside. And look at that there at turn 10. Sampson's closing here in the slipstream, but he's going to have to send it under brakes to make it work because he's still a car length back. Here comes the send, though, from Sampson up the inside at 11. Brunt gives the space. Does he get the drive? No, Sampson covers him off there. Brunt unable to crisscross or commit to a long way around the outside as once again,
a bit of contact.
The gap there is basically nothing as now Baker is pretty much pushing Crisdale along out of turn 4 there. And he's going to force Crisdale defensive. But again, watch that Audi drive off the turn when he gets the power down here at turn 5.
Baker's already done it once around the outside, though. We've already seen that when he passed, I believe it was Shane Best, was it not? So he's shown that he can do it around the outside through this section of the track. Not going to be able to do it this time, but he's going to have to try and do something a little bit different, isn't he? He's going to have to try and pull something out of the hat and do something a little bit special, try something different. I think if he can't get through in the next 2 laps, he needs to pit. Or if Crisdale pits, he needs to stay out. Doing the same as Crisdale is just costing him time in the long run.
Yeah, it will be 2:04 for Carl Sampson having to pass your race leader. But so these two guys are slower as a result of this defensive driving here from Crisdale. So yeah, you would think the overcut probably makes sense for Baker. But yeah, the more that Crisdale defends, the more they lose time. So at some point he has to pull the pin, get the pit stop done, and just take the pain, even if it means Crisdale has a chance to then get the overcut on a warm set of tyres and keep the position. But then the trade-off in return where Baker will have fresh warm tyres versus fresh but cold tyres for Crisdale, which will see things swing back the other way in Baker's favour. Does he take to the pit lane? No. Crisdale does, though, so that releases Baker here. For how long, though? Does he do 1 lap of pace? Does he maybe try for 2 laps at pace as Crisdale is on the lane? Now, this will be curious to watch. Where does he come out in relation to guys like Carl Sampson, who is now leading the train of the drivers to have pitted in this race? You can see there, Dylan Jordan has been stuck behind teammate Hayden Kirk, it seems, for a bit. He hasn't been able to push through like Sampson has, despite the fact he had the pace to go with Sampson and McQueen in race 1.
Yeah, remember he did drop out of the pits around about 2 seconds behind the car of Sampson, so did lose a little bit of ground there coming out of the pits. So he has gained all that back. He's now well and truly in this fight.
Oh,
and Crisdale's long stop for him. He's still stopped. He's still stopped. He's still stopped. Did he speed?
Black
he
flag.
actually has got a black flag.
Oh dear, disaster for Robert Crisdale. Down off the jacks. He's cut the pit lane, Jay. That's what he's done. Yep. He was most definitely under the limit, but he's taken just too much out of the dinky little chicane on pit entry here at Motegi, and that was an unsurfable slowdown as a result. So another driver to fall victim to the pit lane here at Motegi, and we'll have a look at it here on the replay thanks to Virtual Racing School. So on board with the 808 machine, watch him here as he comes up to the pit lane, and it wasn't much, Jay, but this is all it takes to get a slowdown penalty, because 1 and 2, and you have no time to serve that penalty, which means instant slap on the wrist.
Yep, you can't cut those bollards. They're there for a reason. Previously, they didn't exist, and you could just cut them aggressively. Yeah, that's way too much, and yeah, clear-cut penalty. So unfortunate for him, but them's the rules, them's the breaks. Reece Gardner continues on for another lap, but this lap looks like he's a little bit off pace, so maybe a mistake or two there for Reece Gardner on this one. Crosses the line, does a 2:04.3. That is his slowest lap he has done since lap 1. Of course, standing start for lap 1. No surprise that it's his slowest lap, but to do the slowest lap at this point, now when you've got these guys coming along who are setting their personal best laps, lap after lap, on their fresh tyres, already done the pit stop, doesn't bode well for Reece Gardner at this stage. He probably needs to come in and pit and try and get himself back in the battle. Oh, contact.
Like, that would be the option there, as that was Dylan Jordan trying to get past Matthew Brunt. In fact, actually, while I was I was just saying last lap we were checking in with these guys that Jordan hadn't gone through on Hayden Kirk, and well, there we go. A lap later, he gets the job done. Damon McQueen down on the lane, getting his pit stop done, but unfortunately, we expect him to drop in behind Isaac Edwards and a fair way off the pace in 10th spot. We wait to see when that happens, but look at this here from Matthew Brunt and Dylan Jordan. Once again, the Audi with the drive off the turn initially is just enough on these straights here at Motegi. It seems to defend for the most part here. Dylan Jordan does not opt to dive it up the inside at turn 3, but he does force Brunt a bit wide of the preferred line, and that will compromise the extra fraction. But again, the initial drive from the Audi, as we said, Jay, is just going to give Brunt the breather he needs. But watch out for a send here. I think Jordan will show the nose at turn 5, but no, he does not opt to send it. See, though, if he can force the error again from Brunt in one of these turns coming up.
Great fight going on, though, for these guys. So it's been a very, very intense battle between Brunt, Jordan and Kirk. They've let Carl Sampson break away at the front, but at this point I don't think they care because he's had a little bit more pace as it is anyway, and these three now, well, I suppose Dylan Jordan cares because he was matching him for pace earlier.
Careful, Reese. Okay, so Reese has mastered the pit entry because he cut the bollards, but that's an all clear on that one there. So he splits the race in half. Ewan Baker follows him in. Matthew Pluck is still going out there from position number 2. So he will stay on it as a replay once again, just to show the fine line between doing it right and doing it wrong. Watch the bollards there on the center of screen.
Yeah, he hit the bollards, but
that was A-OK in iRacing's book. And then Ewan Baker followed in Reese. You see here, Baker also just clips the bollards as well. But not much in it between those two. Away goes Reese Gardner. Does he have enough to clear Carl Sampson? He will just. That's Gardner exiting the pits up the road here from Sampson. But we saw that Sampson, with fresh tyres and warm tyres versus fresh but cold, was able to absolutely reel in the guys who had pitted ahead of him. But a 5-second delta for Carl Sampson. You know, I'm not so sure about that one there. Like, Reese, it takes a lap for the tyres to come up, but as long as Reese is ready for what 2 cold tyres at the front of his car feel like here, he should probably have about 2 to 2.5 seconds, but he's just driven way wide of turn 4 and decided to grass it on the run to turn 5, so that will hurt a bit. But Reese, though, I'm watching his car currently. He's wobbling all over the place on the brakes. The stability of that car with fresh fronts but cold fronts versus the slightly warm but warm rears is cooked as Dylan Jordan tries to get up the inside of Matthew Brunt, but there was no room and has to slam on the anchors and just rotates the rear. Keeps it together, though, so he hangs on to his position number 6 for the time being. But, well, Hayden Kirk is there with him and needs to be careful.
Ewan Baker could have come out ahead of these guys if he had pitted 2 laps earlier. So the pace drop that he had from being stuck behind Rob Crisdale, he had pitted with Hayden Kirk. What's that? 5 laps earlier, he would have definitely been ahead. But even 2 laps earlier would have been enough. So unfortunate strategy for Ewan Baker, but in those instances, you don't know if it's the right or wrong move until it happens. So just one of those situations. Another race, another time, it could have been the exact perfect correct move. Speaking of Reese Gardner as well, you're talking about struggling with the cold, fresh front tyres. The positive he's got is once his tyres come up to temperature, they're going to be in better condition than Carl Sampson. So that's when he can start to break that gap back away. This battle, which is currently for 5th, it'll soon be for 4th, between Brunt, Jordan, Kirk and Baker, is very, very intense right now. It's been great to watch.
You know, it might just be the fight for
Could be
P3, maybe, yeah.
Well, I think Pluck will come out in the middle of this group, because remember, he was about 5 seconds behind Gardner. Put 5 seconds behind Gardner. He's going to come out between Sampson and Brunt. Then you add in the time that these guys are going to have from having warm tyres. That'll put him right in the middle of this group.
Yeah, I think that's a good estimation to make there. So we keep our eyes peeled to see when does Matthew Pluck finally come down the lane. He's opting to go at least 11 laps on his opening set of tyres. You can see the delta actually to Reese Gardner in P2 is holding fairly steady at the moment here. So that would suggest that Well, Gardner, personal best Sector 1 on this particular lap. Was only a couple of times faster, but fastest Sector 3 of anyone from Reece Gardner now that he's got these tyres turned on, it seems. So that says a lot now with regard to how things are going for him. And there we go, up the inside, Dylan Jordan on Matthew Brunt through turn 7, but the switch back to turn 8 there, Audi, if he can put the power down, he'll get a nose ahead through the exit of the corner, but now surely turn 9 as Dylan's on the inside here, is on board with Hayden Kirk. He's going to try and take full advantage, and he tries to force the issue, but no, that Audi will drive away on the outside as Matthew Pluck finally comes down to the lane, 11 laps on his opening set. But look at this, almost 3 wide as Kirk switches back up the inside of Brunt, but again, Brunt with the drive, despite giving the space. Oh, Pluck's just missed his pit box by about 2 millimeters. It has to reverse a fraction. So he might just most certainly fall into the clutches of the guys at the front of this train, but Jordan is finally through. It's cost him 5 seconds, though, to Carl Sampson ahead, who he'd been racing with, along with Damon McQueen, in the first of these races tonight.
So Reece Gardner's about to cross the line for his first flying lap on these fresh tyres. At the start of the lap, the gap was 4.7 seconds. It is now around about 5 seconds as Gardner does his fastest lap of the race. Sampson around about 0.3 slower, but here comes Pluck. And I tell you what, it's almost like I worked that one out. He's come out just ahead of this group with cold tyres. He's going to check them up even further. This is going to be brilliant to watch.
Well, check them up he may, but also consider the Kiwi sim racing armada that is Sampson, Pluck, Jordan, Kirk and Baker here tonight. Matthew Brunt is quite literally in... Oh, don't ball the carnage! Oh, no!
That's a failure for Kirk.
Yeah, that has to be. You're not wrong. His car is still trying to floor it all of a sudden. On board with the replay thanks to Virtual Racing School. And... oh, no, he's grabbed the grass, Jay, under brakes. Watch him here.
Wow.
And then in a moment of frustration, he just plows into the fence anyways.
Well, I think he put the throttle on to hope that he didn't make contact, but we could see a safety car here.
His car is parked. He's not going anywhere. We're waiting on hearing a call from race control. There's certainly time. There it is. Safety car deployed by race control. We are going to a sprint. And we may just almost go time certain in this one too, Jay. We were very close to exceeding the allotted time in this race with a 17-lap sprint. But bunched the field up for a lap here. And now Reece Gardner, he's going to have the fresh tyres to work with. But Damon Mulqueen's back in this. We said he needed the safety car. He's got traffic that he's going to have to deal with. Craig May and Isaac Edwards directly ahead of him. But he's back in this, Jay. And his tyres, well, he last pitted on lap 8, so he's got fresher tyres than the guys ahead of him for the most part, with only a handful of exceptions.
Yeah, the only drivers with fresher tyres are Reece Gardner, Matthew Pluck, Ewan Baker, and Shane Best behind.
Pardon me, yes, Dylan Jordan's lap 2 crew. So yeah.
This is going to be very, very interesting. So we'd expect Mulqueen to maybe get some spots back here with the fresh tyres and the natural pace that he's got, but wow, this front of the field, the one person that is saying, oh no, why did this happen, is Reece Gardner. He did not want to see a safety car.
He did not. He does obviously have those fresh tyres. We did say that they are. He did seem faster than Carl Sampson once he did his first flying lap, but he has to now build it all over again. The tyres cooling down also gives everyone behind a chance to maybe recover a bit of the tyre performance as well, Jay. So even though Reece had the initial advantage, he's now got to work it all over from scratch, as you said.
The other thing that is in his favour, there are a couple of things in his favour. Of course, he can work out when to go. So he's got the choice of deciding when to jump, when to run, when to push off, and he'll hope to time that in a way that he gets an advantage. He'll be hoping he does anyway, because often it's easier said than done to get that advantage in these restarts. Well, be interesting to see if we go green this time by, or whether there'll be one more under yellow. Just trying to work out in my head how we're looking in regards to time certain. We should be good. 28 minutes on the clock at the moment, so we should be okay at the moment.
It's going to be close, but we have time for one safety car intervention.
Yeah.
And there is the call from race control. We are going to have a 4-lap sprint to the end of this race. So we are going to make it 2 laps. Get the 17 done and dusted here tonight. So that's 4 laps of the circuit for Reece Gardner to make some hay and get that gap back out to Carl Sampson. 4 laps for Sampson, Pluck, Jordan. Well, in fact, now it is a 4-car train of Kiwi sim racing entries lined up behind Reece Gardner. So that's going to be a fascinating look there. How many of them are going to be on the attack trying to get to Reece? How many guys are willing to play rear gunner and lock out the guys behind? What can Damon McQueen do there out of position number 9? Mason and Edwards ahead of him should be easy enough pickings when it comes to raw pace, but you've got to get it done cleanly somehow. And, well, Robert Crisdale, he had that shocker of a pit stop. He's now brought back into it of sorts. He can work his way inside the top 10 quite possibly. As the safety car is in, it's time to check out when does Reece Gardner restart this race. Surely he waits for the final turn here. He backs them up as long as he can and drives out of the final turn, because if he goes early here through the final complex, that obviously puts everyone up to race pace, where if he can get this timing just right, he'll get a getaway off this final turn compared to the guys behind him.
Of course, no weaving once the safety car is pulling away, so you've got to do all your tyre temp work. I think that's a decent launch there for Reece Gardner. He's pulled maybe, half a second. A few guys back in the field that haven't quite jumped away as good as they'd like, and Damon McQueen's going to take advantage very, very quickly.
The inside of Craig Mason at turn 1, but Mason does not want to give him the time of day. He tries to shut the door, but McQueen makes sure to give the space, but at the same time says, that spot is mine, thank you very much. And that's up to P8 for the 42 entry here. And look at that, they're 3 wide between Best,
4 wide.
Crisdale and Mason there. In fact, that means that Crisdale and Mason are going to go back at it once again. The race 1 duel resumes, Jay. And this time, though, it's Mason ahead of Crisdale. But for how long? We saw Crisdale get through last race. Can he do it again here? He's immediately looking for the inside 5. Best is losing control behind us. They're dodging and diving before the braking zone. How he hangs onto it is a minor miracle as we go back to P3.
Yep, Gardner's got around that about that half-second gap back to Sampson, but Pluck is there ready to take advantage. Of course, remember, there's 9 laps difference in regards to tyre life between Matthew Pluck and Carl Sampson. Pluck came in literally as the safety car was called. Now, it was Matthew Brunt that was the car that had contact with Hayden Kirk, was it not?
That is correct, yes. Hayden, he was unfortunately the man who got clipped, but looks like clipped is probably the right description of things.
Yeah,
so look at that damage there. Left front wheel arch. That's about all we can see when it comes to damage. And, no mechanical black flag. He looks like, just a bit of a bump on the way through, unfortunately, and just digs it out of the gravel there without too much fuss. So, look in the background there. Mason now white lining Crisdale down the run to turn 11, returning the favour from race 1. They've got Shane Best still trying to find a spot behind. Mason backs it up into the corner there. He gives Crisdale nowhere to go off the corner exit. So all that good drive the Audi has, Jay, I think we're going to see for what good can it do here for Crisdale, because Mason is willing to show him the same defense that Crisdale showed earlier on tonight.
And I don't mind that. I'm quite happy to see it. I think it's needed, deserved, and appropriate that it's happening. In saying that, he didn't do a very good job of defending, but he's now around the outside, which is what he should have been trying to do in that first race. Get it around the outside, and Crisdale's got it done. So all of that work that he did to get the spot, he's lost it already. Crisdale through, and Shane Best now trying to take advantage.
Up the inside, looks Best into turn 3, space given as Mulqueen, meanwhile, just up the road, has just cleared Isaac Edwards on the exit of turn 4 there. So another spot gain. He's got some time, though, up the road to Matthew Brunt if he wants to try and get another spot here at the dying stage of this race. And look at that there, Shane Best through on Craig Mason. I have to say that was a very surprising decision from Mason not to defend into turn 1, because the Audi, once again, Jay, just absolutely motoring off the corner with the initial acceleration, makes it look like it was child's play at the end of the day.
Yeah, that made it look very, very easy, but we know that car doesn't have top line speed. It doesn't have the straight line speed. It just has the launch out of the corner, and that's all it's got. It's not the best car out of the four in regards to lap pace. It's just got one thing it does well, but the fact that you've got so many stop-start segments in this track, it's probably the one thing you need in this race.
Yeah. He isn't lapping as fast as the guys ahead, but when it comes to defending from a guy behind you who's there or thereabouts, he's got the one thing he needs in his arsenal to protect that spot, and he can do it consistently, corner in, corner out, and well, say no more from there. Coming under the bridge here, it's going to be 2 laps to go at the line. We are going to get them by a matter of about 3 minutes, so close on the clock for those ones there, but keep the laps in mind. Penultimate lap starts now. Reece Gardner leads by 0.8 of a second, a 2:02.8 fastest lap of the race. Last time across the line, he barely is slower than that with a 2:02.9 this time by, and that I think is just actually Samson faster last lap around 2:02.8. So he's keeping him honest despite the tire difference, and it's just he needs to find a magic X factor to really close him down here. But look at this, freight train of Hyundai's. 1st through 4th, all in the Elantra NTC as well. No Hyundai Velosters this evening, which makes sense. I guess the Elantra obviously coming first to the iRacing platform this year in 2022. The Veloster kind of looks like the sort of awkwardly forgotten cousin, given it's also no longer the factory-backed car. The Elantra is what they're moving everyone over to when it comes to the factory-backed efforts. The Veloster is still, though, in use as a customer car, at least when it comes to racing elsewhere in the world for TCR and Hyundai. At this present time, on board Dylan Jordan J, still running in P4, and once again, he's still that little bit of a breathing room to the guys ahead. Hasn't quite seemed to switch this car on again immediately after the pit stop, which seemed to, well, we saw him not quite switch on after the pit stop. It looks like after the restart here, not quite as switched on here as well.
Remember, he's got the oldest tyres out of everyone in the field, along with Carl Sampson, so we saw Sampson had some great pace in race 1 and had some great pace on those old tyres in race 1. So no real surprise to see that Sampson's got good pace. Dylan Jordan did start to drop a little bit of ground towards the end of that first race. So it's about the point now where the tyres are starting to say, hey, I'm not enjoying this at all. At least the front tyres. But the guys that have broken it up and pitted in the second half of the race, they're golden. They're okay. They're not stressed about tyres. They're just stressed about their competitors. The one that is the most stressed at the moment is Reece Gardner. He just wants to get to the end of this lap, take the checkered flag, because he has driven a great race to recover what has been a horrible night from the start of the night.
White flag taken by the 94 as they come down the front stretch. 4.8 kilometers of racing, 14 turns to negotiate, and Carl Sampson is throwing everything he can at that race leader. Gap under 0.6 of a second through the first corner there, but again, I think that's just a sign of the way the differing lines work. And look at this here. That's Robert Christel through on Isaac Edwards for 8th place. So there you go. He's actually completely ditched Shane Best and Craig Mason in the process. Damon McQueen is now harrying the back of Matthew Brunt. He's got 3/4 of a lap to find a move on that Audi. So you know what? Keep your eyes in the background of shot 2 if things steady up here at the front, because while Sampson is close, look at that there, under 4/10. Pardon me, under half a second there through turn 5, and the slipstream here between 2 Audis, 2 Hyundais. Oh my goodness, let's not get things completely confuzzled here. Sampson's throwing everything at this car, but it's going to have to be a bit of a miracle run out of turn 10. I guess just Mulqueen up the inside of turn 8, or turn 7, sorry, on Matthew Brunt gets the job done there. Unfortunately, that Audi, he doesn't have anything to respond to Mulqueen's race pace here tonight.
He's got no tyres left.
And Matthew Brunt too, pitting on lap 4 versus lap 8, and yeah, with the way he got hit, maybe a bit of a flash heating of those tyres as well to add insult to injury. Round turn 10 come the race leaders though, Jay, and Reece Gardner has got that gap up over 6/10 once again down to turn 11. He should be safe here, the final major braking zone, but there will of course be the 12, 13, 14 corner complex to finish the lap, but it looks like this is Reece's race to lose here as we come into our final heavy braking zone. Nowhere near close enough as Carl Sampson. He will have to get in line here through the turn, and now it's 1 corner complex to go. We shouldn't see anything crazy from Carl Sampson here, but it's up to Reece Gardner now to bring it home clean at the end of this race. And through the corner he comes. That's nice and steady indeed. And yeah, talk about a turnaround in race fortunes. One lap down in race 1 after a stalling at the race start to the race win in the second of these events tonight. There we go. To Reese Gardner, your winner here in the feature for the 2-litre Tourers from Motegi.
Good drive in the end. He'll be absolutely overjoyed with that as well, because he's worked very hard in these cars. He loves driving front-wheel drive touring cars, so he'll be overjoyed to finally pick up a win in this series. And much deserved as well, because he's had a lot of bad fortune between this series and the Jetta Cup. He has had a lot of bad luck go his way. So to see some positive come out of a result here at this track is great to see for Reese. We'll run through the race results, because that was a very, very tight finish in the end. The biggest margin between two cars at the end of the race was between Matthew Brunt and Robert Crisdale at 4 seconds. Incredibly tight field.
Well, indeed. The safety car does wonders for that one, of course, but that does definitely give good signs there when it comes to the pace difference up and down the field this evening, despite it being a 4-lap dash there. So your results from the feature. Reese Gardner brings it home 6/10 ahead of Carl Sampson in P2, despite the old tyres on that 27 Hyundai, and able to make them work very nicely indeed. Matthew Pluck rounds out the podium in third there at 1.2 back. He holds off Dylan Jordan, who will have to settle for a P4 finish in the feature tonight. Ewan Baker there, not quite able to switch on the Honda there, it seems, in the end of the race. He will finish in P5, and then Damon McQueen charges up to P number 6, and unfortunately having to get through those cars means he did have his work cut out for him. Matthew Brunt comes home in 7th place there tonight. Robert Crisdale up into 8th place. Isaac Edwards into 9th. Shane Best to 10th place, and then Craig Mason, unfortunately, our last driver there in 11th. Hayden Kirk, the retiring, thanks to the spin and the smash into the fence there at 6 laps short. And then, unfortunately, we missed Reese Harnell and Robert Northway from this race. And then, of course, the rest of our Porsche Cayman GT4 crew there, race control and safety cars for this evening. So we now hopefully await a chance to talk to one of our guys from the podium tonight in that one there. But let's look forward indeed, Jay, to the next round of the support series. V8SCOPS will return on the weekend of July 15th through 17th as we head to Sonoma Raceway on the Cup historic layout. So, well, it's actually what most people would probably
to the real
have normally...
Cup layout now.
Okay, well, there you go. So
it's crazy how they've changed it. So that it's running the layout that NASCAR returned to
this year.
Yeah, 2022. The layout that they used to run back in the 2017 or previous.
So yes, unfortunately, we do miss out on one half of the S's and the dips
boring.
and flows that make up Sonoma Raceway. But well, with the cars. The cars of SCOPS, the historic layout does seem like an appropriate circuit to go visit. So before we wrap up, we do indeed have a chance to speak to our feature race winner, Reese Gardner. Well, Reese, certainly from rags to riches this evening. I think, yeah, to be frank, I guess stalling it out, unfortunately, at the start of race 1 tonight, about as bad as it's gone for you this season so far. But, well, yeah, turning it around and a dominant display tonight, and the pit strategy working in your hand despite the safety car bunching everyone up at the end of the feature there tonight in the 2-litre Tourers.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, guys. I think this is actually my my first ever TCR win on iRacing in general. Like, I've come really close a couple of times, but it's the first time I've picked up the W, and thank God it was on a SimSpeed broadcast. Yeah, I was feeling pretty down after race 1, to be honest. I want to apologise again to Robert Northway and the Kiwi Sim Racing guys, just because, yeah, it was just a rookie error for me, stalling it on the grid. But I figured I'd get some track time in and, you know, just go around at the back. And then, you know, sort of reset for the Jettas. I think the track time in the Jettas actually helped me, because I found the TCR much easier to drive after going in at the Jettas, and I think it's also pretty nice seeing that there was a bit of a climb up in my results. You know, race 1 in the TCRs, non-compass, then 5th, then 2nd in the Jettas, and then the win in TCR. I'm happy.
I think, yeah, it's a good point to make there in terms of sort of a night of progression from start to end for you, and yeah, a bumper night for you as well, occupying yourself with all 4 races this evening. I think one of the things I think, we also noticed quite surprised was that that's your relative lack of pace difference, at least on a one lap difference case, at least lap time wise, between the TCR class and the Jettas there in the middle of the phase. On that, real quickly, how did it feel switching there between the two cars? And how much of the pace difference do you feel, and where do you feel it around a circuit like Motegi here?
Well, yeah, the Jetta for starters has a lot less grip. I feel like it's a lot easier to lose traction in the Jetta. The TCR obviously has a bit more of a free rear end because you can change more on the setup. And as the race goes on, the Jetta's pace and tyre drop-off seems a lot more extreme for me. So, yeah, I'm still trying to work out the intricacies of the Jetta. Guys like, Ray Oliver and all that, they have that car sorted. For me, it's just a case of trying to stay behind them in the slipstream and stay with those battles. But in the TCR, I think it largely just comes down to being gentle on the brakes, on turn-in, making sure that you have a good handle on your rear end, and not being too greedy on the throttle, also very important in both of the cars.
Point to make there indeed. Well, you'll be back for the Jetta Cup when the Sonoma is up next for the support series, but when the 2-litre Touries return, it's going to be another break for a while once again. We won't see them back until Donington in about a month's time on July 22nd. Any thoughts about that round for the 2-litre Touries when we get early thoughts about that one here and now?
Yeah, I actually really love Donington. I think it's the perfect touring car track in many cases. In terms of pace, I think, it's... I don't know where I'm going to be. Obviously, my spirits have been lifted with the win here at Motegi, but I think the reverse grid definitely had a part to play in that. So I think I'm just going to take it as I take every round in V8SCOPS Supports. Just jump in, do a bit of practice, see how I go.
Well, there we go from you, Reese. Before we let you go, though, who would you like to thank for the results tonight?
I'd just like to thank everyone at Fusion Sim Racing, my team. Thanks very much for all the support, guys, and I'm proud to run your livery out there painted by iRap Designs. And also shout out to my Twitch chat as well.
There we go. Reese Gardner, winner of the feature in the 2-litre Touries tonight, and as he said, there's second place in the feature for the Jetta Cup as well. So we'll wrap things up here now, Jay, and well, certainly a busy night of racing up and down both fields. A little bit small grids once again for both classes, but all the same, these guys continue to put on a good show of racing for the most part. Unfortunately, a little bit denied there in the feature of the Jetta Cup, but then again, the Paper Mache Cup perhaps is what we can call that one.
It doesn't matter how many cars you've got in a race. You could have a 2-car race and it'd be some of the most thrilling racing you see if the action is worthwhile. So, I mean, the size of the field doesn't matter. It's the quality of the drivers that you got. And every single round that we've had in the V8SCOPS Support Series has been quality. And I'll take quality over quantity any day.
That's a good point to make indeed. Of course, now with the Support Series done for this round, the main game starts 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time this Sunday, the 26th of June. Please make sure to join us there for Super Split 2 and then the 2 Easy Finance Motegi 250 for that race. And we're not done with SimSpeed this weekend as well. We're going to have the Majors World 600 tomorrow night from Charlotte Motor Speedway, 400 laps in the 1987 stock cars. So it is going to be a pretty long race for both the drivers out on track, but also I think us in the commentary box will be hoping for not too many safety cars there. The iRacing Grand Prix Series will be live once again on Sunday morning as that official series continues in season 322. And then as you see here on screen, the main event for V8SCOPS, the 2 Easy Finance Motegi 250 and Super Sprint 2 from 6 p.m. on Sunday evening, June 26. Thank you all very much for watching, guys. My name is Danny Yeaman. It's been Jay Kennedy alongside me on commentary and production for tonight's event for the Logitech G V8SCOPS Support Series. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and it's goodbye from us for now, but certainly we'll be back very soon here on SimSpeed TV.